Hello, 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 and welcome to another One Line of Code. I am One Lion. TBD was first, not gonna lie, says Scott. Hello, TBD Gamer. Hello, Nerduino. Hello, Scott. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Today is Friday, and on Fridays on this channel, we do Community Day. Community Day. And Community Days are a day where I invite any of you members of the community to bring up topics, bring up things that you want to talk about, preferably things that are related to the content of this channel, as per usual. Yeah, share your project, share the work that you're doing. If you have questions about stuff that you're working on, feel free to bring that up. The other thing that I tend to do on Community Day is work on the open source project called Data Import Utility. I've been working on this one for about 2 months now, I think. What happened to our screen? Window swap. Come back. Come back. Oh, it's loading. Ooh, that's pretty. We're in Kansas City. This looks like it's right outside of my wife's parents' house. But yeah, this is Kansas City in December of 2024 at around 10 a.m. Looking through a screen door. Like, I mean, this seriously could be looking out of their backyard. That's crazy. I wonder if they've been doing that. That'd be awesome. Anyway, so welcome in, Community Day and all that. I have Discord open and running, so you have a couple of ways that you can participate in Community Day. Well, a handful, I'll say, because it's more than just the ways that I present. But if you want to bring up topics, you can do so either by chat, or if you are comfortable enough doing so, feel free to join any of the voice channels in Discord. Type !waiting in chat, and then I will pull you into a Discord voice channel where your voice will come through on stream. So yeah. Okay, to the desktop. So where we left off last with the community project with this open source data import utility was a couple of Fridays ago. Fulusnabel came in, he showed us how to use Cake, which was Cake. It was awesome. It was really cool to see. So we set up a workflow, well, not really workflow, we set up a build step for doing Cake, for using Cake to build our application, generate the NuGet package, version it based off of a tag that we put onto the branch. And what I'm wanting to do now is set up a GitHub action to trigger that Cake script so that we can do the build and release when we have a versioned branch, when we have a release branch. Okay, so where we left off, I think I was doing some DevOps this morning. Yay, DevOps! Which is still kind of what we're doing, so yeah. But anyway, I hope those of you who are here are well. We need to be on automated realms as GitHub, please. Automated realms. Data import utility. So if you're interested in seeing where this project is, side project. Ooh, we have a TBD gamer waiting. I will pull you into the room in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give it some time for audio lag and video lag. And there. Hello, TBD.
Oh, how's it going?
On the air. It's going well. How are you doing?
Not terrible. Not terrible. It's been several weeks since I've been able to attend properly. So, well, I've got the chance before meetings. I figured I'd drop in.
Cool.
And say hello
was your
properly.
Appointment?
Okay. I've got.
Is it something you even feel like talking about? You don't have to.
Yeah. Okay. I have a torn meniscus, and I've been trying to PT that for several months. And the doctors finally said, okay, no, surgical candidate now. So I've got my surgery scheduled for March. So I'm trying to figure out the logistics of doing that now. It's It's funny, the meniscus tear, he'll go in and clean up the meniscus to hopefully heal it,
Right.
or clean it up or cut it back or whatever he needs to do. But the recovery from that is 4 to 6 weeks.
Each time he does it.
Well, I can't drive and I can't travel in that 4 to 6 weeks. But if he was to remove the meniscus entirely, it's basically a couple of days later I can move again. Which is weird. But
it's very
I'd have
weird.
instant. But if he removes the meniscus entirely, I have instant arthritis in that knee.
Oh, geez.
Because there's nothing protecting from bone on bone. So, yeah, it's a mess. But I drive a manual transmission, and it's my left leg. So
awesome.
I'm like,
so you're shifting leg.
I drive a manual transmission. She was like, for about 6 weeks, you don't. I'm like,
oh gosh.
Yeah. And so.
Are you the type of person that enjoys the driving experience? Like you enjoy actually driving?
Love driving.
Awesome.
I love driving. I drive a manual because I can engage more with the actual driving part. And
you are doing more of the driving experience and actively driving.
Yeah, it's not a go-kart.
Understand.
So,
very cool.
I told my wife the other day that they don't make many manual transmissions anymore, so I'm just gonna have to buy a Porsche next because they do still do a lot of manual transmissions. She was like, no. I'll save up. No. It's only 110,000 for a decently catered one.
Yeah. Seriously, you can just, budget. What is it? Years back.
My daughter doesn't need to go to college.
Yes, seriously. Oh man. Yeah. That sounds fun. Sounds very fun. Yeah, I'm the type of person that just first of all, I rarely go out, so when I do go out, I would just prefer the car to drive itself at the moment.
Oof, no, I'd be fast asleep, especially
from here to there.
Especially considering the sleep apnea.
Yeah, that would be terrible. But I'm definitely the type of person that will always pay attention to the road because I have this sense of duty to everyone else around me. That's like, I need to be paying attention. I don't expect you to be paying attention, but I will make sure that we're all safe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Even though I got this this car with all of the adaptive cruise control and stuff like that, I use it and I don't mind it one bit, but I am still actively driving.
Right. Yeah, I dread to think when self-driving cars are more common, how that will work.
Yeah, and how that'll affect people that actually enjoy driving. Like one of the things that my goal is with automation in the world is to allow people to do the things that they enjoy, which means some people like to do the manual part of driving, for example. Let them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, don't take away people's joy.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
But that's just me. That's ideals. But yeah, what else is going on? Oh, go ahead.
No, I'll continue with that. I dislike dealing with the client still. I'm still struggling with that on Liquid Sky. The signal stuff is becoming a little bit more complicated to the point where I really need to. So what I'm planning on doing there is I'm hoping to get some of Exocamil's time and maybe get a few streams together. To kind of go through. Sorry, my boss just pinged me. To go through Angular and idiomatic Angular more than I've been doing, because I think I've hit the point with the Angular client where I'm kind of throwing things together and not really understanding the consequences of it. So I've got like these data. These kind of related data concerns that I now have this hackery to do to make sure that I can update one and reflect that in another, and it's kind of weird. Yeah, but
You can't see I'm nodding, by the way. That's what I was going.
yeah. Oh, you got a raid.
Man. Raid by Clayman. Thank you so much for that raid, Clay. Your stream game is looking hilariously insane and very, 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 very fun. Everyone seems to be having an amazing time with it. If you guys don't know Clay, which I'm sure every single one of you do, he is a game developer working on a game called Epic Hero Tale. Epic Hero game. Goodness grievous. Where's Duke of Soft when you need him? He's in the raid. I saw him on your stream. Just waiting for him to say hi. Let's see. Do we have a command? Do we have a command? What are we up to today? Today is Friday, which is Community Day on this channel. And right now we have TBD Gamer on our voice call.
Ooh.
Ekamina, Eskamina. I was going to say Akashima, but anyway, Eskamina is saying, "Help me, I've been kidnapped by a clay dude and thrown into a van and dropped here. I called Jack Bauer at CT." I don't know who that is, but that's fine. So we were just talking about TBD's woes with working with client-side stuff, which a lot of us really can empathize with and sympathize with. Really, really don't like the client-side development portion. I don't like UI, but I also do. Yeah, that's a tough one.
I mean, it's a necessary part of what we do. If we're building sites and we're building, modern applications, that it normally involves a site, right? It's kind of a necessary part, but I think it's big enough and rich enough at this point where we have, because if you go back to the beginning, or you go back into the late 90s, early 2000s, right? It was like, oh, we render everything on the server and send it down to the client. Then JavaScript came around and we started using that more, and applications started being built on the client. And now we've kind of got this mixed world where we do a lot. We do the things where they can be used effectively. But it means, I think, that the client needs as much attention to its architecture as the server side.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just something that, like, well, even server side stuff. Sorry to interrupt. I thought it was an engaging point. Even with server side stuff, like we still have gotten into the habit as modern day full stack developers to just dive in, have an idea of what we want to do, and maybe sketch out a little bit of it. But as soon as we get just enough, we start running with it and start developing, and don't really do as much planning as we should. So, same with client side, as you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually did see someone's job title the other day, and I can't remember where I saw it, but actually was a front-end architect.
Really?
Which I found
like specializing in front-end design.
Front-end architecture, yeah. Because if you look at the way I'm developing, the Liquid Sky app, right? I've got these signal stores. I've got this data need on the client where I'm kind of holding on to data, but like I've said multiple times, these strategies around, when should I update data? What data do I hold on to? Can I release data? Right? If I query all the tasks and all the planning items and all the initiatives for a tenant, that's a lot of data to be holding on the client. Should I hold that, or should I kind of hold it is it ephemerally is the right word?
Yeah.
Should I hold
kind of, yes. It also depends on where you're holding it, because ephemeral would literally mean once you got it and you started displaying it, you just delete the data from memory while it's still sitting there on page. At least that's my assumption. But if you happen to store it in
Yeah.
cache locally, so you're not holding it in memory, you just store it to like local storage or something,
Hmm.
or index
Yeah.
DB.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still called ephemeral, but I guess.
But I've had many debates with former colleagues over. I don't want to store the entire database on the client, and you run the risk if you're just holding on to everything. You're pulling everything down and you're just kind of dumping it in a store, and then trying to keep that in line. You do run the risk of having a large chunky database held in either local storage or memory. Is that a good idea? I don't know. Sorry, I'm just
like no,
watching.
sorry,
Yeah,
I'm still showing off Clay's stuff. This is
yeah,
what he was doing.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I had the music in. Oh yeah, I need to turn down the actual stream music.
Oh,
Should be. Oh wait,
that's
Firefox.
fantastic.
Firefox, why are you not playing? Oh, because I came back to Dagnabbit. But yes, like, well, yeah, we'll continue that here in a half second.
Hmm.
So this is Clay's new side project stream game. He's been so much fun with it. It's so chaotic. Pretty much you race with ragdoll physics and some pathfinding that he had to add because people kept getting stuck. You can spawn obstacles. Supports like 1,000 players before it starts getting unable to actually run, which is pretty impressive.
That's insane.
Especially the dynamite. Did you figure out the thing with the dynamite? Probably like 2 or 3 days ago is when I figured it out. Managed to work it with 1,000. I was there for this one.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, and then you just I love their like goofy derpy faces. They're like, this is fun. And then they'll just this one like got stuck on this thing for a while and was just like reacting to the physics and then just shot off. It was really cool. No problem. This looks hilariously fun. Thank you for sharing it with everyone. So make sure you wishlist it, open it up in Steam if you are trying to open it from the link that he provided. Um, but yeah, open it in Steam, wishlist it. It's got my wish list already. All right. So you were talking about storing a lot of the data in memory. And I'm so used to doing that because it's like the client machine has quite a bit of RAM, most likely. You're not expecting people to be accessing this from like a thin client or something with very limited
Right.
resources.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think it's super bad if you think about just how many records you are retrieving and how much data total. If you don't have the RAM, you can always download more though. Um, but like it's just what I'm used to doing. So every single one of these projects that I work on stores a ton of stuff in memory, and it might not be the most efficient best thing, but again, it's getting offloaded to the client. These are the only apps really that they're running on those machines, and we're not concerned about using too much memory. Um, so like this one, 38 megs, and that's even I think with the downloaded um, historical has track tickets. Yeah, all of the lookup data gets stored in local or in index DB
Yeah.
on the client, and then they get loaded into memory pretty much when they are loading the page that has the lookups on them.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm
But you're trying to
maybe it
be more
is more of a common plan.
conscientious because you're targeting industries, you're targeting enterprise
Yeah.
systems too.
Yeah.
So
Um,
it makes sense.
if I say there's Um, have a good day, Clayman. If I say there's, you know, a, a company with 20 teams and there's 2 or 3 dozen initiatives in flight at the same time, those initiatives could have many planning items, and those planning items could have many, many requirements, each with very rich amounts of text. And
Right.
there's going to be a lot of text, right? And then those requirements have dozens and dozens of tasks. This could blow up very quickly, especially if you're going into the planning items, you're going, oh, let me have a list of the planning items. And then you click on a planning item and it enriches that data and loads all those requirements. And then you click on a requirement and it loads all the tasks, right? Because that's one of the paths we were going down the other day, right? Of adding the tasks to the requirement. But I'm like, well, now we're holding on to that. And it worries me that that's a lot of data to be not just transferring, but also to be monitoring. Because if I change a requirement, I need to tell people the requirement changed. If they've gone in and edited that planning item or they've added some notes onto that planning item, they essentially care about that thing now. So they're going they're going to need to get that extra data. So do I push to them? Do I, what techniques do I use for partially updating or fully updating records? Do I mark them as dirty so that next time they actually go to look at it, it now goes and requests it rather than automatically pushing it to client, which seems like a more rational approach to me. But again, I think it's all going to come down to the design and how I store things and what sort of techniques I use. And I feel that on the client, I am more a junior developer.
Mm, mm.
I
Yeah,
think
I
it
definitely
resets
still
me
feel
to
that.
a state of I'm just chasing um, the next solution rather than looking at the design. Um, so
So, like what I was looking at here is for Azure DevOps, what exactly do they download on the initial request
right,
for your summary?
yeah,
And if we look at these, excuse me, sorry about that. If we look at the data, it's pretty much what you are doing currently, which is I'm only
yes,
getting that top level basic information and nothing
yeah,
more. And I think these numbers could also be associated with either number of comments. Yeah, so number of comments. So instead of querying the actual task items or
yeah,
gosh, the words that you were using to say each
yes,
requirement has a this thingy and each this
yeah, the
thingy has
tasks, yeah,
requirements. Yeah, so they are tasks.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
You just count the number of tasks for that thing, and then you
right,
have your initial
yeah,
list, and then when they go to click on
hmm
an item, that's when it does the query for give me the full
yeah,
data.
yes, yep, that's doing exactly what I'm
Yeah,
scared to do.
and it seems typical to do it this way. Um,
If it's good
I'm
enough for
sure
Microsoft,
that
right?
yeah, I'm sure that I have done it in a way like here,
Oh,
DDMS would be our good
negative
example.
11. Are they using negative node IDs? Ugh.
Oh dear. Don't look too hard because I'm not going to be able to explain why they made the decisions they did.
Negative IDs. Oh,
Triggered. Let's do
yes.
annual summary report. Okay, so here's an annual summary report search. And this is a paginated search where I'm getting back 100 results at a time. And each of these records would have a ton of information with them.
Right.
So, like anywhere between 2 to 20 recipients, authors, uh, other stuff. Yeah, I
Right.
don't know why that's taken so long. So, the information that I'm getting back for each result is the actual IDs for the related documents. Wow.
Yeah.
So like if I were to remake this knowing what I know now, this would be the address to get the list of shared tiers and maybe just the
Right.
count of shared tiers. So, like this one says that there are 2 tiers for this
Right.
document, which means that it's part of a document set. This is the second document in that document set.
Gotcha.
This shared
Yeah.
tier here is saying that this document itself is part of this DTS collection as well as part of some other collection like APF
Right.
or something else. But it's the same document, same database record, just
Okay.
referenced in 2 different places. So
Yeah.
that's crazy. So for every up to 100 documents, I'm getting all of this information, keeping it in memory. Yeah, that's a tough one. What to do, what to do.
I mean, yeah, it's not an uncommon thing. I get that. But like, I don't know. It's
Well, I mean, if you have any thoughts on just based on this and knowing what you are currently doing and the direction that you're going,
uh-huh.
like what are some pros to this way? What are some pros to the way that you're doing it or
I
wanting
mean,
to
the
do it?
pros to this way is I assume you're making that request every time you go to that table as well. So if you go back to that table, then it'll
Right.
make the request again and get the current set of data, right?
No,
So
because that's why it's being stored in memory.
it's cached, yeah.
Yeah, so
So
this is
now
put in
what
a
happens if
state
someone
object.
changes something about that? How do you
I
know?
have signal R.
Right.
And
So
that
you're
is
using
really a
Signal to
thing.
push.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're pushing to the client. Now, what are you pushing? Hey, the data changed? Or are you pushing
The data change in
uh
here is the updated record. So here's the record
so
ID
you actually
and
push
the
the updated
updated
record down
record.
to the client?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was gonna
Now,
show that, but I don't want to do
so
it
one
in
of the things. So
production.
with what I'm doing, I use the signal stores, the NGRX signal store, and I kind of that's my midway, right? So I think you can set where it stores data, but that's kind of my in-memory store right this second. Um, and um, what I want to avoid is just making the application very noisy, because obviously this is something that's going to change a lot. Tasks and requirements and initiatives are going to be added and
Consider that
removed and
statement real
changed all
quick,
the time.
though.
Mhm.
Consider one particular work effort. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for the follow. Are you truly expecting the requirements to be updated often?
Um,
Like, what is the realistic often to you? Is it like maybe twice during that work cycle? Is it 4 times? Is it? Oh, me too.
um,
Me too, Ixlamon.
Rion, real, huh? Sorry, like chance to try and read some kanji. I like.
Yeah, yeah. E. Yeah, you can definitely see the E,
They,
but I don't
that,
recognize the. Is that katakana as the second character?
yeah.
I'm guessing it's the thing that makes the XL, and
Is
then
there
the
an XL?
dash would be the long
Huh.
E, and then Shikushi. No, I don't know. I can't read hiragana anymore. It's been too long.
That's pa. No, it's not pa. That's huh. I
Like
thought that
the
first character
Romanchi
was
that Twitch is
Rio.
getting us is Ixlimon.
Yeah, but I would said Rion.
Oh, that's three. That is three.
Yeah, I thought that was Yo, the next character.
Ami Limon.
Imon. Okay.
I will try to remember that.
Trying to learn how to register it at a glance rather than having to hunt through my
Yeah.
memory and see what I can figure out.
Yeah.
The line, the ends and the
Oh,
sheaths
that's
and things with
mole.
the with the different position of the tick, those really get me.
Oh yeah, the little circle and
Yeah,
the
yeah. So
modifiers essentially.
yeah,
When do we go from coup to goo?
yeah. Um, but anyway,
Or
back
both.
to data.
Both, we can say.
Um, um, the
Yeah, so we were asking how often is often for these changes that you
so
expect
what
to
I'm
happen.
considering is it's not just so on an individual requirement, I wouldn't expect the data to be changing drastically a lot, right? It's more the things associated with that thing that you might want to care about. If a task gets moved, or does it belong to a requirement? Does that requirement now need to show a different status? Are you currently looking at that thing? Do you really care about that thing? Do you just need to mark it as dirty? Also, if I attain what I want to attain, right? We're talking thousands of users potentially, right? Many thousands of users, and to be transferring the data back to them every time would be um, um, would be expensive. Uh, so if it was more updating and pushing was rare, that'd be fine. But I'm thinking about it from the perspective of, you know, hundreds or thousands of users potentially using the system day in, day out. The amount of data transfer there would be huge. And I don't need to transfer all that data. So can I put in a strategy to say, okay, well, this record changed. You actually have this record. You care about it because, you opened the planning item. Therefore, you must care about it. So here's the latest update for it. Any other planning items change, then you know your list is stale potentially, right? So can I be more, how do I put it? Tactical, I suppose would be the word on just when I ask
Strategic.
you to make a
Strategic.
yeah, strategic. Yeah, can I be more strategic about how I ask you to get data, so that I cut down the amount of calls that are happening back to the server.
Right.
But beyond that, what do I store? When do I store it? When do I discard it? If you go to the planning items and get the planning items for you, well, that's going to load the planning items for you. But what if you then expand that and open it up to get all the planning items? Do I really want to load everything into memory?
Right.
Should it just be loaded into the screen and kind of discarded from memory pretty quick? And then when you page or something, then go and do that. Or because unless you go and drill into a planning item and change it, do you really care about all those planning items being there? Well, from a speed perspective, having to go back to the server every time is kind of bad. But there's also GraphQL caching as well. So do I lean into that and use the caching layer in GraphQL rather than actually worrying about, which stores it in memory anyway, right? And then I just mark the cache as stale if something changes. Um, so all these thoughts and more whirring through my head on how to do this, but then realizing that I'm technically inept at this component of my platform is not fun.
But you're still considering it,
Uh,
which is really cool. Because again, if you're thinking about a system that's going to be used by hopefully, well, potentially, we'll say potentially instead of hopefully,
yes, yeah,
thousands, hundreds of thousands of users, you are considering not not necessarily the taxing on the client side, because again, we can consider the client side as being relatively reasonable that they'll have enough resources to store
yeah,
100 records with their details. But when you're thinking about now, when we're updating those 100 records, who gets the updates? How are we sending out those messages? Because we're going to
yeah,
need to query for every single client that's connected that cares about this data. How are we going to
yeah,
prioritize who gets the updates, how we send the updates,
yep,
how we even identify them? So that's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
And like
yes,
here's just an initial thought. You are going to have each user a part of some kind of work group or some kind of, I keep calling them discriminators because no sequel, but some something that groups people together as these requirements, work items, tasks belong to this group of people. So when they log in, you have some kind of connection to the client. The client says, I'm going to start receiving updates. I want to register to get updates to your messaging service.
Mm.
Then, whenever an update happens, you send out a small ping to the client that says, do you care about this record? And the client does the work on its side to say, do I have the record open? Have I recently opened it? Um, like, is it in memory cache or anything like that? And
Yeah.
then the client then does the request for, give me the details of the update. And that
Yeah.
way it's the minimum number of clients sending requests to get an updated record.
Yeah.
Does that sound like
Yeah.
an actual strategy that would work?
Yeah. I mean, I think like my brain's working because right now I'm using GraphQL
Mm-hmm.
WebSockets, so I can use subscriptions from that perspective. But if I use something like Signal, I can provide groups, right? So if I had groups that were like, okay, well, these records, this group cares about these records, I could be a little bit more clinical in how I like deliver those changes. That'd be awesome. And again, I don't think you. I mean, if I opened a planning item an hour ago and I have and it has since changed, but I don't have it open now, right? I'm doing something else. I'm working on an initiative, or I'm
Yeah,
going,
but you
just
still might
keeping
have the
track on the
tab open,
dashboard.
or
Yeah.
are we even
Well,
closed
I
out of
might have the
the?
tab open, but I might have closed the tab, and
Okay.
it might be on my client. I've looked at it today. I've worked on
Mm-hmm.
it. I've made changes today. Therefore, I probably care about it changing, and I'm likely to open it again. Then, on the server side, when that thing changes, um, um,
Sorry, I keep
pushing down to the client.
distracting you
Oh,
by
by the way,
responding to them. I am
no,
listening to
I've
you,
got
I
to.
promise.
I definitely have some attention problems, so I have to look down at my mouse mat to make sure I don't see the screen moving. Otherwise, I do lose focus because I can't
That's why I
help but
play with
read.
this on occasion.
Yeah, um, yeah. You know me well enough to know that's a problem for me. Um, so um, so if I just push down to the clients that have looked at that thing, oh, by the way, this thing's dirty now. Right. Maybe that's enough because then if they open it up, or if they've got it open, the signal can say, oh, by the way, it's changed. You probably want to go refresh this. And we've all worked in, I assume we've all seen apps where you go in and it says, oh, by the way, this changed. Do you want to reload?
And then you have the button, right?
Confluence does that, right? If someone changes a document while you're actually in it, it will say, oh, new versions available, reload, because it doesn't want you to lose what you're working on as well.
Right.
But, it might be relevant.
My preference is
Um,
still like, if the user has the app open, then
yeah.
let the client decide whether it wants to update a record, but send all record updates to the clients that are connected and asking
Yeah.
for updates for a
Yeah.
particular
But it
set.
becomes a merge problem potentially that you got to be
Potentially. Yeah.
careful about, right?
Yep. And
Um,
I do handle that in this app. I don't remember
yeah.
how, and we can look at it if you want. But it's not going to be
Uh,
pretty, whatever it was. Why? Why? What are you doing? Has track.
if,
Okay, so here's
mm,
an example. I have has track open. Hopefully, this is the test site on both.
yeah.
I'm adding a new record. I don't really care what it was that had happened. Say ecom, sure. Some building.
Observed by anonymous.
Yes. Because this app allows for users to report hazardous situations, and if they want to be a whistleblower
Whistleblower
anonymously,
policy.
yeah,
Gotcha.
then they can.
Yeah.
And then, all of these things, a thing happened.
Do not include PII.
Yep. All that.
Yeah.
Everything.
Dear.
So submit and and oh, come on. So this should have
In theory, yeah.
updated and shown this. Okay, so here's another example then. Let's see if an existing record will get updated.
Yeah.
But I could have sworn that I told this thing to push. Oh, we won't be able to set the status because that is a different role. But what we could do is change the building location. Can we though? Why can't I update this? It didn't even update on the same page. What's going on?
New bug found.
Or met? Yeah. Nothing.
Why that button go grey?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
It was green
We're gonna have
before.
to ask the developer of this site.
You made a change. That shouldn't be green. That should be green. It was green when it went to the new report.
Yeah, that was weird. And it is showing as a new report though.
Oh. It's like it's loading the local version rather than the server version.
Yeah. Oh, man, we definitely need to get back to Hastrack at some point in time. What in the world? But yeah, so this, if we go back to a previous video, I can prove that this used to work, but Signal R would send a message.
It does work. It's like it's one of those things, right?
If they go offline, this is where the merge thing happens. If they go offline, they make changes. This is a PWA, so they can work offline, store changes in IndexedDB, and then once they get back online, they get the update button, and then they're able to.
So fun fact: I used to work in mobile devices, but back when mobile wasn't quite as advanced before the iPhone, right? So I used to work on applications for pest control, and the technician would go out in the field. They download their work for the day onto the device via modem, and then go out into the field for the day and capture, pest reports, etc., etc., for the customers. So they have their route on the mobile device. They go to a customer. They record pest findings. They print off receipts, etc. They take payments, etc. They wouldn't take payment through our device, but they would take payment through something else. But then they would go back to their home or the office at night and put their mobile device into a cradle, and it would connect to the server via modem and upload the data from that day. So it had to merge a mobile database into the main customer database.
Oh my goodness.
So you think merging's hard here? Try merging a SQL mobile database into a SQL Server database and hope you don't get conflicts, because the office could also record pest findings. If the customer phoned in and said, "Oh, I found a problem," or they wanted to add some notes, it had to merge the notes and stuff. So that was challenging. And over a modem, so I got to rewrite that synchronization process when I first started at that employer.
Sounds lovely. Actually, that actually does sound fun.
My testing involved sitting in a closet, hooked into a 56K modem to make sure it was as robust as it could, uploading and downloading 2 megabyte, 3 megabyte databases. It was
back in the day. 3 megabyte files waiting for that MP3 to download for 2 hours before you can listen to it, or start previewing it part of the way, and then pause it, and then wait, and then thank you Winamp for those memories.
Oh, talking of memories, do you see Skype's being shut down finally?
I didn't. I mean, I haven't used it in a million billion years, but yeah.
Skype was for the longest time my primary way of communicating with my to-be and then wife.
Oh wow!
Because we lived in different countries, so Skype has fond memories.
Mine was
Skype calls.
GChat.
Yeah. Event sourcing is a good use for these merge use cases.
I don't know enough about
if the events are disconnected, like if you have one device recording information and another device recording information, you've got to play back and make sure the timing is right on things. It does become, still becomes a technical hurdle. But yeah, event sourcing is a good way because you can record what happened and then play back the events in the sequence.
We're going to go on a really quick tangent while DC Aggie is still somewhat active. This is just random, so it's only going to take like 2 minutes. Have you ever seen this? This is my favorite thing to do. Let's do. Does anyone see historical? Hysterical. There it is. Okay. Back in, let's say, 2016. If I zoom into this little area over here, by the way, this is Las Vegas here.
Yeah.
And so DC Aggie, take note, take a drive from Las Vegas to Indian Springs. To
Las
around...
Vegas. I got fake married there.
Nice. Fun. What do you mean fake married?
My in-laws might not have known that we really got married, so we held a fake wedding to make sure that they knew we were married.
My wife and I got married one day in Missouri and didn't really invite anyone. Just told them the next day, we're married now.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
I'm telling you, I really don't like being physically around people. This is Google Earth, and there's this place in Nevada that just magically, let me just make sure I'm in the right place, just magically appears on satellite imagery in 2024. Oh, there it is. Okay. 2019, 2018. Okay. So somewhere around here, 2018 imagery, 2017 imagery, 2013, it all looks the same. Suddenly in 2019, there's this. It just shows up out of nowhere.
4 buildings.
Are they buildings, though? Let's look a little closer.
It's an alien spaceship, clearly.
Clearly, no.
Oh.
They're black stone walls that are
is that shadowing or is that
plus sign? That's shadow.
That's shadow.
Shadows. Yep. So this looks like the top, and then because of the shadows, you can tell that they're kind of tall.
Yeah, they're blocks. Yeah,
you can imagine they're rectangular, and yeah, obelisks, and they are, about 12 meters across.
12 meters across.
Is 39 feet, so not small.
Yep, they're not small.
And you can imagine, like, I can't do the math for shadows.
Well, if you could just figure out what time of day it was taken, you could figure out the shadow length and calculate the height, right?
But we can at least just see what the shadow length is by itself. And the shadow length is 22 feet-ish, 23 feet.
So they're sizable.
They're sizable. But what are they?
Who's close? Who's going?
DC Aggie is close.
What's the worst?
So that was fun.
It's an alien spaceship. That was cool.
Well, it was just fun to see. There's this other really cool one. Am I actually signed in? No. I'm not going to be able to find it. Oh wait. Yes, I am.
Step away. I need to let the dogs out. I'll be right back.
Okay. So if you want to know where that is, though, you can find it on Google Maps. This is what it's labeled as. Interesting fun. Oops. Google Maps. So it's labeled as the Edificio Cruz. M824 plus C24. I have no idea what that means. Indian Springs, Nevada. That's what it looks like on Google Maps. The other one is... if anyone happens to live in Antarctica, or is planning a trip to Antarctica, that'd be cool. Give me a second to get coordinates. No. I'll be there in 5. So this isn't normally what we do on the stream, by the way. I'm just enjoying myself. Too bad the resolution is so low. If I were to guess, I'd say shipping containers stacked too high in a plus sign in the middle of the desert like that, which is totally okay. I think it's a reservation. Let's go back to it real quick. Hold on, Thindle. Hold on, love. So it says it is part of Indian Springs, which is Desert National Wildlife Refuge. Yeah. So just wondering what it is. I'm not trying to say it's anything super duper mysterious or anything. Just wondering what it is. There are no pictures anywhere. It's just really large black stones that are arranged precisely north, south, east, west. Be art. It could be art. It's just there are no pictures on the webs that I could find. I mean, I didn't look too hard.
In the streetcar didn't get out there yet.
Hey, they're flat. No, they just didn't project those. Okay, Thindle. I'm pulling you into the room in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So again, I'm not trying to spread any alien theories, any mystery theories. I'm just interested in knowing what this thing is. Oh dear, you sound like you're on a...
Am I on the wrong microphone?
No, you're good.
You good?
You're good.
All right.
Thank you, Dugasoft.
All right.
Thank you. There's one other place that I'm trying to find, though. In Antarctica.
So, how are you, friends?
No, Joe. Doing well.
Doing good.
Nice.
Yourself? You feeling all better now?
Oh, yeah. Way better. Not perfect, but way better. Are you not streaming video online?
Oh, I forgot to push the start button. Hold on.
Hey, fine.
DVD was
No
trying
worries.
not to be distracted anyway, so I think it was better for him. While I'm
just
looking
thinking
for this, we
the
can
worst
definitely
sync is way better when over Discord.
Mm-hmm.
Say again? I didn't catch the first
The sync audio video is way better on Discord.
much. Yep. Okay, there it is.
There we go.
While I am looking for this other thing, you are welcome to continue the conversation that we were having with TBD, which is about, like, I'm sure you have this quite often with e-commerce apps, Thindle, but when the customer goes to a page that is maybe a product listing, how much information do you download? How do you handle updates to those product listings in real time while the customer is either on the page or on the search results? How do you send out messages to people to let them know there are updates? That kind of stuff.
In general, while they're on a page, you don't. But selling might run out of stock quickly. I'd set up Signalar
So again,
and use that.
signal.
I mean, you can there's JavaScript clients for it that are very easy if you're not using a .NET frontend. So that's probably what I would have done. But in general, you don't really care about real-time updates in e-commerce. The info doesn't change that often. Like if someone fixes this, yeah.
What would you do in the case of an app that you have where you want the user to get real-time updates? So, for example, a DevOps type of application, project management, project planning.
Yeah, so I'm actually working on one of those at the moment, which is that auction app that you saw.
Oh, yeah.
Where if someone places a bid, it needs to be updated right away for everyone looking. And again, Signalar. Famous last words, it just works. I set up a group. I have a method that I call using Signalar called subscribe to product or subscribe to auction. And when people visit an auction page, it calls that, it adds that user to a group. And when there are updates to that auction, it sends a message to that group. And when they move away from it, it unsubscribes. And that is, you don't want all your users to get updates for 10,000 items, right? Only the ones that they're actually looking at.
So when the updates happen, you broadcast it to everyone.
Yeah, everyone who's interested in it, everyone who's subscribed.
How do you know whether someone is interested or subscribed?
When they visit the page, it registers them automatically on load. And when they leave the page, it unloads the subscription. Then we have notifications and things like that will send to your phone, but that's entirely off to the side there. That's not automatically updating on the web. That's just sending notifications. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Signalar, once that clicked, was a big thing for me. I was thinking, when I started thinking about it, I thought, okay, so if I'm using Signalar, I'm going to be sending everything over it, right? That's the wrong way of doing it. I have a normal web API for synchronous things, and then when you want updates, you use Signalar.
That's how I supposedly am doing it with HasTrack, which is once a record is updated, I know that anyone that is connected to the client, if I just do a broadcast to everyone, they're going to get the new item so that it can get updated in their local store. But we tested it, it's not what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything.
You know how you have in your hub, you have that, send to all but originator or whatever it's called, and send to all and all of those. You also have a group that takes a key.
Or a channel, I think.
Yeah, it might be a channel. I think it's a group, actually. I'm not sure. Point being, you can segment them yourself.
Yeah.
But for e-commerce in general, that would be overkill.
What can you use as a backend when you need to scale out the backend? Is Redis supported?
I do know that GraphQL, its WebSocket subscriptions are backed by Redis. So I'd assume, and Signalar, there's a full Signalar implementation in Azure. There's a hub that you can use, so yeah, it will support scaling that. So if you need large-scale Signalar, yeah, it definitely can be scaled.
There's literally a Signalar service.
Yeah, I remember when Signalar first launched, and browsers couldn't necessarily all support the WebSocket, so a lot of long polling to begin with on the early days.
But I mean, that's a good thing with it. I'm not going to call it guaranteed, but it has fallbacks, right?
It degrades, yeah. It
Yeah.
degrades if they're not available, so it's got those.
Yeah, and auto reconnection and all of that if it loses the connection. So it handles a lot of problems for you.
Yeah. WebSockets and subscriptions would definitely be the way I go at the problem. Like for Liquid Sky, right? I don't want to be transferring large chunks of text all the time. So what we were talking about before was kind of the concept of potentially pushing, by the way this record changed, mark it as dirty, so that if you try and look at the record again, it will actually do an API call or a reload of the GraphQL data. So because I don't want to be transferring tons of data that I don't need to be transferring, because just because someone's opened something doesn't mean they care about seeing the data, right?
No, and I mean that's entirely correct. From what I've understood is that you're not supposed to send large amounts of data over SignalR and WebSockets in general. It's more send a signal that something has happened and have the client act on that. If that action is calling a web API to get updated info or marking as dirty or whatever, yeah. But then there's a limit there as well. If you have the example that I took up earlier with, so the amount in stock has changed, right? That can just be a number. You can send that straight away over SignalR, in my opinion.
I agree.
But yeah, as I was saying, I'm not sure if that came through together with what you said, TBD, but if you need to scale SignalR, there's literally a software as a service on Azure for it. You can just set up a hub on there and it will scale and cost money.
God says, well, if the Canadian government doesn't have access to Azure. But yeah, the technology will, I mean, it's, you know, a server-side service, so it will, sorry, that sounds kind of redundant.
How else are you going to word it?
Yeah. I mean, you could set up some kind of, you can't, but it would be cool if you could set up like a peer-to-peer SignalR network without a server. It would be stupid and dumb and don't do it, but I'm not sure. Is there technical limitations for a browser to connect to another browser via WebSockets? There must be.
Browser to connect to another browser?
Yeah, build a peer-to-peer network. It's a dumb idea, and it would be even dumber to implement it. Just a thought that popped up in my head. Yeah, Tyron, I think that's part of the issue. Yeah. Why does everyone think of, you know, piracy as soon as you say peer-to-peer? There are more uses for peer-to-peer.
Bring it up.
But that's the most common application for it early on, right? So we kind of associate. We hear peer-to-peer, like, ooh, we can copy data quicker.
Yeah. It's also Tor, which isn't better. Do you know what the Tor browser is and how it works?
Yeah. It works like an onion.
Yeah, exactly.
I could.
Rather the Tor network and the Onion browser. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, you're good.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of nice how, you know, you have this technology that's used for a lot of shady things, going back to torrents, but it's also used to distribute like legit stuff as well, to not hit a single point of failure, like a single server as hard. I'm thinking like Linux distros and things like that, where they often distribute them as a torrent. I think that's a good use of technology.
Yeah, definitely. I think the reason that the conversation started dying out is because it kind of is talking about these more shady things.
Yeah.
As opposed to stuff that's kind of relevant.
Let's not talk about shady things.
I mean, we can, if it is where you wanted to go. I'm just letting you know why you're probably.
I'm not saying I wanted to go there. It's just kind of where I ended up for some reason.
But DC Aggie is also stating Tor browsers work by routing all your traffic through the CIA controlled endpoints. True. Code Void is here. Code Void greeted you, TBD.
Yep, I said hello.
Yep.
Talking of single points of failure, right? At some point in an application, this is a thing. There's going to be a single point of failure. You just try and reduce the single point of failure to the minimum.
Yeah. No one can guarantee 100% uptime.
Yeah. If you're scaling out your website, well, you've still got the thing scaling out the website to fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
or you've got a router
minimizing
somewhere.
the chances of failure.
Yeah.
That's why we measure.
You've got a router somewhere, or a fiber optic converter, or yeah.
Yeah, but that's why we measure availability in like 5 nines, right? Because we know that 100% is impossible. We just try and minimize the likelihood.
Exactly.
AWS has a service that is up 11 nines.
Yeah, and that's insane.
Great. That's great, but what if AWS goes down?
Exactly, yeah.
Not unheard of, because you then have to figure out, okay, well, now I've got, region redundancy, and this starts to cost a lot of money. So yes, 11 nines availability is possible, but you have to be willing to spend the money to do 11 nines.
Yeah.
And that does not come cheap when major companies can't achieve 4 nines.
No. So something fun happened when I moved to the cloud. I was running on my own Rust for a while, and I had to spend 2 days, 2 years in a row. I had to go down to a server room between Christmas and New Year's because I had failed drives, and I didn't want to do that because my drives in that server weren't hot swappable. So I had to shut it down, pull it out of the rack, replace the drive, push it back in, restart it, and rebuild the RAID array, right? It sucked. Took a while. So I decided, screw this, I'm going to move out into the cloud and have someone else deal with replacing all these drives. So I moved out there, and like 3 weeks after I'd managed to move all my services out into the cloud, Microsoft Azure's storage network went down worldwide for 8 hours. It's like bad timing.
Bad timing, or you were the problem.
Yeah, it could be that. Could be that. From what I understood, someone pushed like an update to some kind of controller, and that thing is propagated all over their network. So every single storage server on Azure went down at the same time.
Yep.
For 8 hours.
I think Code Void is saying that you cursed it.
Yeah, I think I cursed it. What do you mean I was using SATA? Yeah, I was using SATA. Because I say TSD.
Yeah.
Sorry. SATA.
The thing to remember there is, just because a company pays a lot of money doesn't mean that they get any different developers than a company that doesn't pay a lot of money, right? Like, we are human beings that produce things, do things, are responsible for doing things. Money does not guarantee no failure.
No. I think, from what I understood, the issue was that if they tried fixing a node on the network, when they brought it back, it would get like a feedback back and shut down again from the rest of the network. So they had to bring everything off manually and then move everything back to backups and then starting them one by one. And that's why it took 8 hours instead of just, shut off, and start. That was fun.
Anyone can buy
Now I'll talk about that.
devs and more
We don't
devs
talk
that would
about
allow
that
you
fallacy.
to do the work faster, and more devs makes move faster.
Yeah. The mythical man month.
Man month?
Yeah, the mythical
Yeah.
man month.
Yeah.
9 women do not make a baby in 1 month.
No.
Right. That's sort of
Yes.
that sort of concept.
Okay, I got it.
Right.
Yeah.
I will
But
have
they
to say
can
that I
make
hadn't
9
heard that
babies in
before.
9 months if you
Yeah,
really
yeah.
try hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them might proc.
More people does not necessarily mean
No.
you are going to produce better results.
Mm.
If
They always need to
faster.
remember that
it means you're going to produce worse results.
Yeah.
in dev, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. We're talking about, man hours.
Well, it equals 3.
But 10 is still more than 1. Yeah. So, yeah. I had to explain that to a customer once that, so you have a good idea, and you shouldn't let this stop you, but if you're going to spend the next, I don't know, year developing something that gets close to LinkedIn's kind of core value, if they look at what you're doing and think, hey, that would be a great feature for us, they can take your one developer who took a year to build this and throw 50 of them at the problem and be past you in 2 or 3 months. So I'm not saying you shouldn't make peripheral services, but like trying to do something that's really a core part of a huge one's service might be dangerous. Does that make sense? It's a bit, cowardly to not do, like saying that I can't do this thing because they might take the idea and run with it, but sometimes you have to think from a business perspective as well.
So Code Void, I I don't really want to talk too much about Heztrack because I converted it from a JSP application a million years ago to MVC, and then from MVC to Blazor before I got as much experience as I do. This is the thing that gave me experience with using Signal R, and I abused it. But I learned a lot in the process. So I'm just trying to figure out, or I wasn't even trying to figure anything out. I was just looking at it to see if anything would just pop out and be like, hey, this is why your other client that's connected is not getting updates. It's because my client will filter out any updates that were generated by me. So because I'm using broadcast to all connected clients, it's ignoring any that have the same user ID, even though it should be client ID and not user ID. Whatever.
Oh, so your question was like an actual, this is a problem I'm having question.
No, not at all.
No.
We were looking at this. Yeah, go ahead, TBD.
Yeah, it started because I was talking about data pattern, like strategies on Liquid Sky, right, where I'm dealing with planning items, tasks, requirements, etc., and I'm having these associated data that I need to update in some cases, or it could be updated alongside, and what do I use to store it properly, and when should I release it, or whatever. So it just kind of started from there. We're kind of talking about different methods of doing that, and because it feels bad to, I don't want to store the entire database on the client, right? What techniques could I use or should I use, and what other things? And one line looked at Azure DevOps, which seems to load the entire of the database down into the client, including negative IDs, which is upsetting.
Then we got on the topic of negative IDs with core. That's fun. What do you say? Are we getting Signal R updates now? No. Dang it. Wishful thinking.
You're logged in as different users now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what I think of GraphQL.
Oh.
It feels like you're letting the client do all of the work, which means that it can also be hacked, might be too much of a word, but you're trusting your client too much. If you want to show it as like a read-only integration, then sure. But having your application itself depend on it, not sure if I like that.
I don't like the idea of mutations in GraphQL. I don't like the idea of updating my database through GraphQL. That I find challenging as a concept. Using GraphQL with what I've done in Liquid Sky, I've created a read-only schema. And I've used views to obscure the underlying schema, because some data doesn't need to be exposed as endpoints themselves. You don't ever need to go and get statuses or whatever, so it kind of gets merged into everything else. You can hide internal IDs. You can just you can control at a field level what you see. I think my initial look at GraphQL, I thought, well, hold on, I'm just exposing the database to the client. How's that helpful? Once I started using it for Liquid Sky, where I'm like, well, I've got a need to query this data, but then the user could expand the columns or they could do whatever. Well, if I do it using GraphQL, then I can just flex that, and if I add new columns in the future, I don't have to necessarily change anything. It's not like I have to produce a new API or whatever. I'm just providing that data as a new schema and saying it's now available. The schema is there. There's a lot of advantages to it from what I can see so far. Again, if I want to provide a summary, like like the planning items, I just return like the title, the assigned user, the review date, and now when I click on that item, I can use the same GraphQL endpoint and just filter it by that ID, and now add extra information that I want. And I don't have to create a new endpoint for get details, or there's all sorts of things we do in APIs that require a new endpoint. And if someone says, "Oh, I need this new field," or "I want to show this field," then it can be challenging. So I kind of do like what GraphQL provides so far. Not saying that I'm going to always recommend using GraphQL. I think I'm benefiting from the fact that I'm not exposing the same schema that I'm using to update and store the data. And oftentimes when I've looked at GraphQL in the past, it's been on top of a monolith. And my colleagues are like, well, hold on, we're not exposing the database to the end user. I'm like, no, but there's a lot of work that goes into protecting the underlying schema. But
I just feel that GraphQL makes it easy to put too much logic on the client side. I'm not sure what the name of the pen that I like to use is, but basically I want the client to show what I tell it. Right? I want all my logic to be server-side, like all of it. And then just have the client display it. Possibly you could use GraphQL for reporting and stuff like that. That's where I think it would shine.
Yep.
Yep. Hey, Snobble.
Yes. So yeah, you talk about GraphQL. Yeah.
Yep.
We use GraphQL a lot at work. It got good size and bad size, right? One bad size with GraphQL is if you give it a really, really heavy query, it will execute that and maybe make your SQL server really unhappy.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
But it is really good. I think it is really good. The thing that you can say, okay, I'm starting at, for example, the customer. And then for this customer, I want to follow the orders relation. So find the orders on the customer and filter those. And then I want to get those order lines, and I want these columns on these order lines. So it's kind of like writing SQL-ish kind of on the client, where you can kind of customize your query so you get just the data that you want to get out of the system.
Yeah. So that was what I meant with, like, it would be good for reporting. But I'd rather have, when I want to act on the information, I'd rather have, get order rows for customer or orders or whatever.
What we have in our system, and I'm not saying that is the right way to do it, but what we have in our system is that we have, we don't use mutations in GraphQL. We use just for query. And then on the side of this thing here, we have a REST API to do updates, sort of say. That is kind of separate.
Yes, that's exact what TBD said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It works.
Nor am I.
I think another use case is definitely, if you have a desktop and a mobile client, right? The mobile client oftentimes isn't going to present the same information that the desktop is. It's just a space limitation thing. GraphQL can really come into its own there, because you can flex the query based upon the form factor you're in, and it's the same query, it's the same endpoint you're asking the data from. You're just asking for less of it when you're on mobile, which is a saving, and you don't have to create different APIs. You don't have to mess around with that. It could be quite time saving. Yeah.
And I interact with a lot of systems. Sorry, Eric, a lot of systems, and they usually don't have GraphQL, and then you have REST endpoint that can do everything. So you just want a few columns, but you get everything in the database, and yet you don't get enough because there's something's missing. So you have to query another endpoint to get that. And then the filtering is limited, so you can't filter the way you want to filter. So you kind of have to read it too much anyway, and then do filtering on the client side. So good and bad things.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and I was saying that makes a lot of sense to what TBD said about accessing different amounts of data depending on your platform.
Yeah.
Whatnot. That makes total sense.
Yeah, but it also, the platform can be, in our case, is we have a front end, but then we have integrations running towards the API, and they have completely different what they want to read the data. So to say, they use completely different things, right, for that. And and then if you have the front end, we have grids in our front end, and the columns there, they are selectable. So if a user hasn't selected a column, why fetch that column? So to say. Anyway,
good point.
Just my opinion about GraphQL. I'm not really convinced.
If you look at the blue, what's it called, the marquee here, it does say opinionated developers.
Yeah.
So, and I'm listening to your opinions, and you're starting to turn me around here. So keep going.
Yeah, and then I have a question: should you implement your own GraphQL engine, or should you use an existing one?
We're developers, don't we always do things ourselves?
If you're using .NET, Hot Chocolate is just, there's so much in there. I wouldn't even recommend anything else right now. I think it does provide
projects. Hot chocolate and strawberry shake.
Yeah.
They're starting to move away. They renamed Banana Cake Pop to Nitro.
Yeah.
Really? Come on.
But I must say, so what we do, sorry for interrupting you too much, Jay, but we use Hot Chocolate to parse the GraphQL query, and then we get out the abstract syntax tree, and then we translate the syntax tree to SQL, and then send it to SQL database, which then we use this with JSON schema thing to return that the JSON object that matches that query. I'm not sure I recommend that approach, but that's what we do.
It's
but then,
a approach.
Strawberry shake is really awesome. Like that made a huge difference.
Am I the only one that doesn't like the QL in GraphQL though?
The
query language. Yeah. I feel the syntax is a bit weird, but I mean, I can still work with it. I just have to think one extra time when I do it.
I think my biggest problem with the GraphQL thing is that there is no standardization from what I know for filtering. You do projections, like selecting columns in GraphQL, but you don't have any standard from what I know from filtering. And that, I think, is a big miss in GraphQL. But I might be wrong. It might be there now, but we've written our own. But TVD Gamer, do you when you use GraphQL to do queries, do you also parse the GraphQL component and process the AST, or do you get more help than that?
Sorry, what was that?
I'm just curious how you use Hot Chocolate, because you mentioned you use that.
Yeah, I'm just adding queries on the server side for Hot Chocolate to provide the API for the client side of Liquid Sky to query. So I'm not doing very much. I'm just saying, okay, here's the data. I create a ViewDB context, which is marked as no tracking for Entity Framework, right? So it's the quickest possible way out of the database. So I create a ViewDB context. I provide the endpoints and allow it straight to query that with projection. And then I use views on top of the database, so I can even obscure the underlying schema a little bit more and merge the things, so I don't go too deep into the schema. And yeah, it just works really well for me for what I'm doing so far with Liquid Sky. That being said, the start of this conversation began with, I'm not too certain about the ordering of my my dependencies. So maybe I'm needing to reflect somewhat, but yeah.
I've got to run for just a few minutes, but I will be right back.
Okie dokie, we'll be gone for another hour and a half.
And just because we love to build stuff, then what also happened in our world was that the GraphQL component was very hard for front-end developers to use with what the Angular grid components we use. So then, in addition to GraphQL component, we also written another component that has different syntax that kind of does the same thing, but is sort of hard-coded to fit the Angular grid component. So yeah, not afraid to take on.
I mean, because I use Apollo GraphQL as the client, right? So
TypeScript,
nice abstraction around it, so I can just give it a query. It gives me the data back. It casts it straight to the objects. So all I'm dealing with in the Angular side is just arrays of objects, and it's smooth from that perspective. I
think what they ran into in the front end was when you want to do groupings and things like that, and so you want to say put everything under this group everything under the customer ID perhaps, and then or something like that, and put it out there, and there. To be honest, I don't know how many customers use that feature anyway, so it might be a waste of time, but it was that kind of reason that this other component was created. But if you just do plain list, I think that sounds like a good idea, because you shouldn't take on more code in your software than you need.
Yeah, agree. I think the GraphQL, I really do hope to lean more into it to learn a little bit more. So far, I've enjoyed using it, but then again, I've attained that I have a read database. All my command databases are completely isolated. I can control the schema. I can flex that a lot, and there's no concern, right? I don't have mutations enabled. I can't update that data from within there. I think if I was using it in a monolith, where I was saying, "Oh, let's just add GraphQL on the end," I think my the challenge would have been much larger. But I hope to get into more advanced uses of the GraphQL pieces. There's a lot more I haven't touched upon. The authorization stuff, looking at it from because you can control at an individual field level in the schema, who can see what, which is a fascinating concept.
Yes. But you also mentioned this thing, you put these views in between. I think that's probably a good idea, because what we essentially do, and good and bad things with that, is exposing the entire database schema. So whenever we add a new column, it pops up in the schema. That's a good thing. But whenever we want to refactor something, That's not so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. The views give me the flexibility. If I change the underlying schema, I can just modify the view to make sure the data is still being applied. And if I'm deprecating something anyway, it really doesn't matter. But my biggest, from a product management perspective, having dealt with PMs a lot, is like, well, what data do you want? You know, when they're saying, oh, we want to build this screen, you say, what data do you want? And they say, well, we don't know. GraphQL allows you to expose everything. And then say, well, now it's on the client side, you can just deal with that. Whereas traditionally with an API perspective, you'd be able to say, well, what fields do you need? If you expose everything, you could be making a massive API call for no need. Whereas with GraphQL, you can be providing an endpoint that does expose everything, maybe, but does then...
I agree. I think that is my biggest benefit with GraphQL, is the thing that you can sort of, you know, here you go, select the thing you need, and if you need more stuff, select that as well, and it's up to you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a strong argument for GraphQL.
Yeah.
And but it is when you use Apollo, right? So
Apollo.
On TypeScript. Yeah. So if anyone listens here that uses C# and they say, I want to consume GraphQL from C#, that's a pain. Until we found this strawberry shake, or they released this strawberry shake that works how it should work when you do GraphQL. So what you do then, you specify your queries, and together with the schema and your query, it creates the C# classes for you.
Yeah.
So you can access everything in type manner. So that's it. Works. It's really good. We used GraphQL before that, and it was kind of painful to do that.
Yeah.
We succeeded, but a huge difference with this strawberry shake.
Yeah. One of the, with Liquid Sky, one of the things I've kind of done is I've used it as a playground for myself to be able to expand my understanding of some of these technologies, so I can play with them a little bit more, be more comfortable with them without the worry of, you know, real life. And I think that, having that playground has really opened that up. So GraphQL I've been able to use in a more idealistic way. So I don't know if my point there was, I don't know if I'd be as cheery about GraphQL if I had to just like I said before, implement it into a monolith or something. That could be painful because I'd have to really consider.
I think for us, when I think about the GraphQL component, it requires very little maintenance. It just gets the schema. It just does the stuff. So we don't really have to think about extending. What we have to do is adding new columns sometimes, but it's never a question about, okay, can you add this new column to API because we need it?
Yeah.
And when I deal with certain organizations, like no names here, but I know that they have a column in a database in a certain place, and that they can just add that, but it's impossible for me to get them to do it because we will see if we prioritize that task, and it never happens. But with GraphQL, at least I could get that column myself. And because some organizations are very quick, fast moving and easygoing, and other organizations are like adding a new column, writing the select statement and add a new column and then extending the DTOs. No, it will never happen. How much? How much I write? So that's also the reason I write GraphQL, because then that organization, right? I can just fix stuff myself.
Yeah. Yep.
Makes sense. Speaking of slow, more moving organizations, I'm going to paint a very broad, what's called paint with a very broad brush here. Has anyone worked with major Japanese corporations?
Like SoftBank?
Not sure about that specific one.
No.
The one I've worked with one, but it felt like it was the culture because everything had to be in writing and triple copies and signed by 4 different levels of bosses, specified down to a T. Is that just my experience, or would you say that's fairly common?
No clue. I have not worked with a
the
large
opportunity.
Japanese company.
I don't think
When
that's
working with them,
maybe
sorry, go.
thing. Maybe it's the if it is it medical stuff you're into or something like that. It's like
No. It's printers, right? So printer software, and we found a bug. We had to fill out a like literally 15-page form with information about it, and we had to get that signed by 3 levels of managers, and then send it over. And they had to sign it, and then it started falling down towards the developers. So we had a turnaround rate of fixing bugs of like 2 months, which was slightly horrible. That can be something tiny.
But I think just some organizations, they get stuck in this kind of documentation hell. A friend of mine who works for a Swedish company, no names, but it is related to, and they have a process called Prince 2, and they follow they just follow stuff. You have to do these checklists, but nobody reads the checklists, but you have to do them, and you can never answer no on a checklist. And I think, what's the point if you can't answer no on a checklist? And then it says, can we remove it? No, we can't remove it. The process has to be followed, and it just takes ages, and everything has to be a project. So, we want to upgrade to .NET 9. Okay, that has to be a project. We have to put the customer has to order that, sort of, which they never will. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, some organizations, they just get stuck in this documentation hell for some reason.
Are you okay? Did you fall over?
I know that you Americans probably haven't done this.
Are you generalizing? Because if you're generalizing,
yes, I am very generalizing, but there is a point to it. When we Europeans travel to the US, right, we have a very easy visa process, right? It's a single page form and like $10, and we got a visa. But that form, it's like, what were they thinking when they made that? It has questions like, are you planning to commit terrorist acts while in the US? Who ticks yes?
But the good thing about that kind of document is you can ask things that are not really a crime, a terrorism crime. Are you planning to do any, immoral activities? And then you say no.
Yeah, that as well, right?
And then you lie, but then you lied on that document. Then it's probably easy to throw you out, I guess.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, that was actually on the document, right?
Yeah, it was something like that. Do you plan to
if you're planning to commit immoral acts.
And then there are, and also it's multiple things. Are you planning to do immoral acts, or are you an American citizen that are returning from living abroad from avoiding tax stuff, 1986 or something like that, or and then you say no to all, of course, because if you say yes to any of these, you will never enter. But I'm sure Americans get the same thing when they try to enter Europe.
No, probably. I don't know about that.
Nope.
No.
Having been on both sides of it, right? Coming into the US and leaving the US now. Going to the UK, I can say for certain. There's no the visa entry form for the UK. Last time I went 3 years ago was barely any questions. The US has had that when they had the visa waiver, and now they've got the visa program since 2012 or whatever it was. They've asked all sorts of questions for at least the 24 years, 25 years I've known. So it's a lot of. I get what you're saying. There's actually are you ever or were you ever a member of a horrible party, right? As well on there.
Yeah.
So yeah. But
It just feels so redundant.
Yeah.
I was thinking of, these forms that you fill out just to have them filled out.
Yeah.
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 But sure, what Snobber said, I mean, one of them is if you're planning to commit immoral acts. And I guess if you go to the US, you say no, and I don't know, you expose yourself in front of the White House or something, they could get you for breach of contract.
Yeah. Well, think about it as well. Technically, I'm going to put a little tinfoil hat on here, but you are also providing a handwriting sample.
Nice.
But I filled it out digitally.
And DNA as well, if you think about it, because they only ever touch it with gloves.
Yeah, but I did it on the computer.
Well, I mean, we used to have to fill it in a paper, so there's other ways of doing it. But yeah, you do it on the computer now, the visa program. But they also can run any checks they need to you on you know, and if you search and they find some evidence that you've done something, then you like you said, you've lied.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Something tells me that
fill it on a piece of paper.
But if they find evidence that you did something, aren't they just going to deny you anyways?
Yeah, likely.
By the way, just if you're going to the US for a conference and you're not being paid, is that for business or pleasure?
You'd have to ask the conference organizers what they'd recommend there, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You could be, because if you lie on that one, then you can be in trouble. But if you're just attending something, then
Yeah, I mean, you're not there to make money in the US. I'd say that's pleasure.
Yeah.
But it could be to increase your skills, to take home new skills so that you can do better at your business, blah, 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 blah. So it's subjective. Let me greet Tyler real quick. So Tyler on YouTube, hello, welcome in, was asking, where is everyone? They are in Discord currently and in chat on Twitch and YouTube. If anyone else feels like talking on YouTube, you can do that as well. But hi. Today's community day. That's what's going on. And we're talking about software adjacent stuff.
C# 10 or C# .NET 10, it's about to happen, right? Soonish.
In November.
And this fall, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone heard anything?
They released the preview. They got the field keyword and those things working.
Oh, cool.
I
have not been keeping up with them.
Version preview since November.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's officially released in a preview now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been using Field since November.
They confirmed
live on the edge.
extension types?
Nope.
They still we're working on that.
They extend everything?
I'm not entirely sure. Not entirely sure. I think there's an article on something that Snobber would like.
Okay. Is
Unions.
that AX2 support?
Unions.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well,
I don't think anything is decided, but I think there's a document on GitHub about it.
Yeah. The discriminated unions, it's interesting to see that, because when you read some people's opinion on it, it's like this C# is garbage without it, and with it, it would be perfect. And I think that's quite. Maybe I'm overestimating. I'm side, it's too big, but I think some people put too much weight on it. So, even though I like it and I use it extensively when I use C#, but it's also, we survived for many years without it. So we can write software without it. But it is a nice thing to have, at least in F#.
I have to drop, so I will say
thank you so much for being here. Do your stand-up if you can.
Yep.
Take care, TBD.
Stand-up. This week I worked on Liquid Sky and developers.stream a little bit. We got the Twitch flow working in developers.stream, which was nice. So early next week, hopefully we'll get the ability to kind of link your account, and then that will validate that you're a Twitch streamer. So that's making progress. And then on Liquid Sky, I'm still stuck on the tasks updating. I've got the signal working. I figured out that. I learned my lesson there, so I have made progress. But I continue to struggle with the data design there, so I will continue to refine that. And that is my stand-up.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Thank you all.
And thanks for being here.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
No worries.
Take care, TBD.
Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks all. Bye.
But then we also have the people on the other end of the scale. So I'm thinking about this community unit still that says it's pointless, and that's also not true. It's like it's no use for it. It's because. Yeah, I like F-sharp, right? But also it's more like I like the ML style language, and they always had this thing, the combination of record types, which we have in C# now, and union types. And I find and that thing together combines what people sometimes call algebraic data types, which means you can put types together. When you get into that, that's awesome when you have that. And you kind of need both cases. You need a record and you need the union types to create something that is with enough power to express the business logic in. And that's when you get into that, that's amazing. So hopefully we get it there with C#.
Yeah, and I'll give it a definite maybe. Again, there are like official thoughts going around about it.
Yeah.
Not just the community, I mean. So maybe.
Yeah. But also
definitely maybe.
Were very frustrating in C# for a F-sharp guy like me, because they were incompatible with F# records. So I'm kind of thinking, I don't want union types in C# because that's gonna just ruin F#.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about there being dozens of you.
Yeah, there are just a few of us.
Yeah. And that's fine. You're still one of the best programmers I know.
So F# community, I'm rambling on here. They sometimes...
That's what community day is for.
Yeah, they sometimes have this little bit bitterness sometimes about why are not we the biggest language? Why is C# there when F# is so much better? That's what they think. I think for some reason F# should never have thought that way. It should have been community would much healthier if they thought, we don't care about C#, we create the language we love, and if only 10 people likes it or 3 people likes it, it doesn't matter because we know it's the best. But now, and the Clojure community kind of have that opinion about themselves. Clojure is the best language in the world, and I don't care if you don't get it, other people, right? It is the best language. But we don't have to have not everyone have to be a Clojure developer, but you're welcome if you see the light. And I think
it's not Rust.
Yeah, Rust is, of course, the best language in every way.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't think so, you're...
I'm just waiting for you to just start cursing.
Yeah, now we're going very political here. With Rust,
You're about to start saying stuff like... Oh, he's about to say it. WordPress.
No.
Yeah, how's WordPress going? WordPress has this formula. Or
he just says it. You say it so boldly, Snubble.
Yeah? I don't know.
I mean, you all saw my list, or heard my list.
Yes.
PHP is for people who like to install extensions or plugins. Yeah. I thought it was hilarious with that one.
How is... I thought it was a good list. But C# Fritz, he's building a WordPress replacement, right?
Yep. Well, replacement. He's building a CMS and blogging system. Let's put it there. Or put it like that. Has anyone tried Umbraco?
No.
It's actually quite competent.
It
works
existed
with
for many years, right? It's really old.
yeah, and it's Danish. So
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a plus or a negative, but it is Danish.
As long as they don't speak.
Yeah. It basically works with the concept of documents and renderers for those documents. So you set up a schema for a document, like this has a title, this has a free text field, this has a color entry, whatever, and get an editor for that document type. And you can create custom editors and stuff as well. And then you can create renderers for those document types, which can in turn, access the rest of the document graph, for example. So you could have a category view that lists all the documents that are under that in the hierarchy of this type. So it's really competent, but it also takes a little bit of getting used to.
I guess so, because it's many years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you want
DC
to
Aggie,
look
by the
at
way.
CMS system, then try it.
DC Aggie was saying, I'm not picky about language. Sure, I'd quit my job if they moved away from C#, but on the scale of developers, that's not all that picky opinionated. So I'm agreeing with this because it's like I'm picky about what language I use or like to use. So I'm going to look for roles where I get to use that language. And if someone is telling me you can't use that language, you have to use another one, I'll find another place where I can use the language that I like. But I'm not going to tell someone else, you must use this language because it's best language. Use your language.
That is a perfect way of thinking about it. I like .NET. I feel extremely confident working in .NET because I know what it can do. I know the APIs. I know things about it. I would be able to learn, let's say, Rust, for example.
Oh yeah.
But I wouldn't feel comfortable in the same way for quite a while in it because it's so different, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm good enough of a developer to be able to learn it and be efficient in it, but I don't see the point at the moment, if that makes sense.
Agreed.
But always be aware of what's on the other side of the fence.
I mean, for me, I'm not even concerned about what's on the other side of the fence. I'm concerned about is the tool that I'm using appropriate for the work that I'm trying to do? Because if so, I'm going to use it. So go ahead, Snubble.
I was away from .NET for 10 years or so. I was mostly in Java then, right? And language-wise, Java and C# are it's not a problem to pick it up. It's so similar. What is more difficult is the libraries you use. But I think the biggest difference...
And patterns on some cases.
Yes. But the biggest difference for me is the building system. How you build stuff. And I think just Java is so awkward there, in my opinion, compared to .NET, which I find much simpler. But my other friend who has the other thing, he is now doing .NET, but he's really the JVM. He has the opposite. He thinks .NET way of building stuff is just so bad, and Java is much, much better. So I suppose it's like, what do you think? But I think that's the big...
When you say build...
Yeah, but in .NET you typically build stuff with .NET build, right? Or or maybe use a K.
Like just compiling, more or less.
Yeah. In Java, you don't really. You kind of need to use Maven or Ant or Gradle, and they create these huge projects. Create this thing, and then you get this huge project created with a bunch of stuff, and like, I don't want all this stuff. I just want something simple, right? Something a program.cs. That's what I want. I don't want everything else. And if you can't really create in Java program.java and just compile it into something executable. You have to do more than that, and it's not that difficult, but but you can't just do it. And I just thought I think that's unappealing to me.
Can we call it not difficult but annoying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
But then again, there are some things I like in Java, like the jar file is just a zip file. I like that idea. and also
Yeah,
in
so it's
the
nougat.
yeah, maybe, but not an executable. A DLL is not just a zip file.
No,
And
IL file.
So I like that idea. And also, in another thing that you can do in Java, which I don't think we can do in C#, is mixing Scala and Java and Clojure all in the same jar file. That's also something I think quite powerful. And another thing in Java, which is also really good, is that they have these fat jars, which I think we kind of got now. Don't have that we can build a self-contained executable, I think. Yeah, I don't remember. But it is, fat jars are a really useful thing sometimes to encapsulate dependencies. And I'm missing that in .NET at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's called single. It's been around for a while, but there is a way for you to just generate one exe file, self-contained exe file.
But for example, if you want to build a library and you have some dependencies in that library, maybe a logger thing, but you don't want to expose those dependencies to other people because they can sort of put restrictions on what they can do. In Java, then you can then create what is called a fat jar, where you embed the log framework and you embed certain things into your jar file, and that's sort of they just see your public interface. They don't see these other details. But in .NET, if you take in a file, it has other dependencies that can collide with your dependency. And it's not that much of a big problem these days, I admit, but it is a nice thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Interacting with chat real quick, I agree with DC Aggie. It's like
you're not going to read it out.
He said that he skipped every session saying something about AI and Azure and Entity Framework apparently, and I can understand you. And if you look at it's so trendy. Aspire came out, and suddenly there were 500 sessions about Aspire, and then OpenAI released GPT, and everyone started talking about AI all of a sudden. They all jump on the same bandwagon all the time.
I have AI fatigue for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But here's the thing, right? Thindal and other people that are smart in the chat, and Manlion, right? Our bosses say we have to use AI, okay? Use AI, and things like we can use Copilot and we can use these things, right? But what I'm asking them, how can we use AI to help our business case? Where can we put it in to make it improve things? And it's just so hard to come up with a use case for it. It's surprising to me because we've been talking about this 2 years, and we have an AI feature coming in, and this is right. Amazing, right? Amazing value. I'm sarcastic. In that we can create an invoice, and on the invoice you can write a text that the customer can see, and then we can now press a button, rewrite with AI. That's the best we can come up with in 2 years' time. How to use AI.
You could have done what everyone else did and taken your help files and we're going to build a chatbot out of this, which everyone would have hated. But you could have said, we have AI.
Yeah.
Querying your documents is a really good use case for us because we have a repository of documents dating back to 1940s. And we have litigations that are like, what happened to this building in 1976? Who owned it?
That's useful.
What things were surrounding
it? And
it's like, if we can just do a natural language query to the document store, then very cool. Another one that is useful for, again, our business use case would be something that's like, we have all of these reports that happen periodically on a recurring basis. So there are ways that we could just do analysis to find out which reports happen when without even using AI, but also to have AI supplement that process to say, you have these reports coming up. Do you want me to generate the template or fill in the details with the information I have from the database? That kind of thing.
but would most people consider that being AI if you skip the natural language interface and instead use some kind of query language? The
Which is
backend
what
would
we
still
are
be
doing
the
now.
same, like all the documents,
That's
but
what
you'd
we
have
are
to
doing.
use like drop downs or whatnot.
Yep.
Would your boss still consider that as AI?
Maybe.
Because it still is. Oh,
But I agree. These kind of scenarios you describe are useful, right? But for our scenarios, I think what I suggested, but also this is strange to me. This is the thing, Era. It's the bosses come to us as developers to ask for useful cases for AI. Where I think you should ask the product owners, right?
Yeah.
What are the values? And so I try to come up with some scenarios, like, for example, you saying this. I think a big killer thing with LLMs is that we can now take a text document and say, given this text document, can you extract this information for me about this thing? And that it can actually do quite often, as long as you don't run out of your tokens. And that's amazing. That's amazing, I think, right? For us to do. And another friend, he's in a legal thing, right? So they need to sort of fill in, sometimes their customers need to fill in legal sort of form, but then they can send in an existing document they have, and then they can extract with LLMs the information and then give them, we think this is what you want based on the form you submitted. And that's really useful. But for us, it's
a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the bosses heard
In a lot of
AI and they
cases.
want you to use AI, but they don't know what for.
It's the investors.
You mentioned legal though, and that is a big place where they can use a lot of LLM. Because I'm not entirely sure what the name of the tactic is, but if someone wants information, you info dump on them. It's like they want the emails from this company for the last 2 months, so you dump everything from 1987 on them instead. And they have to filter through all of this. So in that case, they can just give it to an LLM and then query it. Does that make sense? So that is a really good use case of AI instead.
Yeah,
Having a boss say, we need AI in our product, and the only thing you can think of is, okay, let's build a chat bot in the corner instead of having, the question mark to get help. You have to talk to it instead. That's bad use of AI.
I mean, I think my bosses tries to, they know the hype and they know the investors, what they're asking for. I think it's more of investors saying, in order to attract interest in our company, I think it's more of that. But, it still surprises me that it's so hard for us to come up with a good use case for this thing. Especially since people are marketing this as the biggest revolution in software ever, almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be easier for us. If it was that thing, it should be easier to find a good killer use case for us, but it's really hard. And another big problem for us is that, of course, well, I think that what my friend is doing, the legal thing, is you always have to double check with the user anyway. We extracted this information. Is it correct? And that's valuable, but we cannot trust it really to sort of do it.
It can help you find things, but you need to check it. There was one very early thing with GPT where someone asked about, it was a game. So there was a game for like Nintendo 64 or something. They asked it, when is the next in the series coming out, like number 5? And said, there isn't one. So they repeated like, yeah, there is. Tell me about it, please. And then it started just spewing out nonsense.
Jailbaiting. Jailbreaking.
Yeah.
Jailbreaking AI. So that's definitely a common tactic that people will choose to do. Poisoning. So all of these things, like even DC Aggie's question. So let me read this out. He says, my default question is, who is responsible for what the chatbot, AI chatbot says? I work for a university that launched a chatbot, and my question was if the chatbot can give me, or does give me, wrong information on financial aid or graduation requirements or admissions process, will we honor the response if a tuition amount or application date is hallucinated? Do we accommodate the student because they were misled by a bot? We paid for more for than any army of student employees. manning phones and chat screens. And so that is
I'd say it
definitely something.
depends. Yeah, go. Sorry.
But I
That
think
is
that's a really
definitely-
good question. I think that's a very good question as well, right? But if you take it back, sorry, I interrupted Daniel here, but if you can kind of have the same thing with the telephone support. So if you call into someone human saying, and they're saying, what is the gradation requirements here for this, this, and this, and they say X. And then you take decisions based on that, but that was wrong, right? What do you do then in that case? Suppose you could have the same argument then for chat thing, right? But I think it's a very good question, actually. I think that's since it is fallible, what do we do when people take actions based on information given? I think you have to honor it. That's what I think. But I'm sure people don't agree.
Yeah, but what if you make it hallucinate?
Yeah. So
doing it for nefarious things is different. That's a completely different area. This is like you have best intentions and you set up a chatbot with the information that you provide. It can only give information based off of these documents that you provide, and you have temperature set to a point where it's only going to give information that exists in the documents that you provide. So there are strategies around this kind of thing, but we still need to make the decision what happens when, because it's not an if, it's a when the AI will give misinformation confidently even and say, here's what happens. So there are regulations around this that are trying to get set up. There are internal processes. So it's all about responsible AI. And that's just a term that gets thrown around that people don't really pay much credence to, but it is a big aspect of, if you're going to implement AI in your company, do it responsibly and mindfully. Come up with these questions ahead of time, make decisions ahead of time, and then take the appropriate steps to put the right disclaimers, the right information out, etc. That's my response.
But what happens at a university if someone calls up like welcome as new students hotline? I don't know if that's a thing, and asks like, what's the tuition for next year? And they get the wrong answer. But they recorded the call, so they have proof of them getting the wrong answer. What happens? Will the university honor that? Like if the person said, oh, it's 5K, when in actuality it's 50. Like what happens then?
So again, that is a good comparison of how you can consider what you do when AI does this. It's just more probable that AI will give confident information incorrectly. Confident incorrect information.
But then we have the interesting question about copyright when it comes to AI. I think that's a very interesting thing as well. When Facebook and Meta, it seems like they downloaded the copyrighted material through BitTorrent, as I understand, and then trained their language model on that thing, and and then try to hand wave it as this is fair use, which is American thing,
because
by the way.
It's public domain.
Yeah, I think they said something about, oh, it's fine because we seeded as little as we could, so we didn't upload very much.
It seems like.
Yeah, but you still downloaded the things.
Yeah. And this OpenAI was sort of a little bit crying about perhaps I don't know that is the term when this DeepSeek thing distilled OpenAI. I don't know these details. And I'm like, what goes around comes around, So you took data from someone else, and they took something for you, and I guess that's how it works.
Yeah, but in the end, you end up with something like Game of Telephone. So
potentially, yeah. I mean, of course, unless you are doing something novel with the technology. So I'm not an expert in copyright. I've been watching this copyright law lawyer, and she's been talking a lot about copywriting AI generated stuff, or using copywritten stuff to train an AI model. And it's like it's doing something novel. You're not actually reproducing the material or using the material. You're creating technology, which is a different domain
take something
than the material.
And make something novel about that. You base on that. That is, it's still the other person's copyright still apply, but your work is that you have now done is based on it, and you added something to it, which means you also have copyright on that thing. So you cannot just say I did something new on top of that thing, and that completely sort of nullifies the copyright argument from that thing. But it is complicated, and
but everything we do is based on something else as well.
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
but I mean, we're looking more legally instead of just esoterically. I don't know. Very specific.
I'm on the fence about the legality and copyright of AI-generated content.
Yeah. Some people claim it can't be copyrighted at all because only what the human can produce is copyrightable, and there are some previous law cases for that when someone tried to claim what an ape or monkey, I don't know, was produced what you could conceive of art. And does that ape then own the copyright of that art that they did? So that they and then they decided only humans can have copyright, so that ape cannot have copyright.
That's species.
Yeah, it's species. But then they argue in that sense, if that holds, what AI produces cannot be copyrightable. So
or it can copyright it to the one who prompted it.
No. But
I am not a lawyer.
So then, if that is true, but if that argument is true, if what AI produces cannot be copyrightable, then the code you put from AI into your system is not copyrightable. So
potentially, it's
this is hard questions, right? And there can always come a new new court case when they say it's different, right? But ultimately, copywriting thing is like it's decided in court.
Mm-hmm. And it will go there.
Yeah, probably.
And we'll.
But I mean, it is there. It is there often. So this is the person that I was talking about, where I've been watching a bunch of her videos just because I am currently using AI to learn how to write music. I'm not claiming any of the music is my own, not trying to copyright it or anything like that, but I'm also streaming the music creation stuff. So I'm like, what am I at risk for? That's the only reason I care about it. But there's a lot of information that is legal information regarding copyright and how it works. And I'm sure none of us currently talking have the deep knowledge to know what all means the copy or what all can be copywritten and how to. But she does have videos on stuff like how do you copyright stuff that was you use Suno, for example, to generate some music, and then you created your own piece based off of that. What part of that is copyrightable? The other thing that she talks about is, again, the music that the model is trained on is transforming the use of the music. You're not generating music, you are generating a model that can generate music. So they're changing the form from music to technology. And I don't remember what the full argument about that was, but there are different domains on this. So I honestly
it's complicated. It's very complicated.
But when this all started, I was experimenting a lot with these generative images. But my biggest problem with that was that I got some kind of really nice looking images. But I started thinking, is this just a simple rehash of an existing image, or is this something unique? I don't know if it is or is not. So then that kind of, that I don't know, is this just a recolored existing image? And some images it produced, I felt I have seen this before. Really strong feeling
to the original or to the training data.
So I kind of after that lost interest.
Okay.
But that's
more examples it has to base it on.
Use music. You should do it, right? Don't let me stop anyone doing anything.
Right? Yeah. You're expressing your opinion. We all know. definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry,
The more data you have, the less of a copy it will be.
Yeah, potentially.
Right.
Because there are still so many
I
instances
remember
where,
when
regardless
Copilot
of
came
how
out.
much,
What were you saying, Line?
regardless of how much data it has, it still ends up generating something that already exists. If you are very specific in your prompt, like
Yeah.
a man wearing a red suit that has white webbing on it and is partially blue on the core body, and it's a tight suit, and it'll generate Spider-Man for you.
Yep.
From an actual movie cover.
Was this guy who was really angry when Copilot, GitHub Copilot had just come out because he managed to have it generate his exact code. Turns out when you started looking for it, his code was the only thing that solved that problem on the entirety of GitHub. So it had, a one of one.
But many people in the shader community says that because these things, they scrape the shader toy site, right? And basically it just spits out, exactly what's on the shader toy, more or less, when you ask for things. And is that right or wrong? Well, I don't know. Maybe it should reference back and say, oh, I found this interesting example on shader toy.
Yeah, attribution.
Yeah.
And that's one of the major things that AI lacks is attribution. There's so many issues with how did you source, and I'm agreeing with DC Aggie on this, how did you source the training data? And they will say on the public open internet, which has copywritten material on there, but it's in the public domain, so it could be used, but that's not true. So it's been done. We have issues with it now. So the question should shift from how can we talk about how bad AI is to what can we do about it starting now, starting yesterday or whatever. Can we continue to discourage people from using it?
No.
Is that the approach? Can
But
we?
I think I think a great leap forward would be, but I also think it's very difficult, is if it could say, this code I created based off this and this code. That would be very interesting for me as well. It would also be very interesting information saying, okay, this is a place I could find this code, or this image was created from this deviant artist mixed with this thing. That would be cool, I think, if that was possible. And then it would be easy to do attributions.
Yeah, I think GPT has started doing that with text.
Maybe.
Where it can actually give you references of where did you find the information you just gave me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand.
Question is, how often do you break the Stack Overflow license when using Copilot?
What do you mean by that?
And the Stack Overflow license is by attribution.
And also share like. But what does that do with Copilot?
No, but I mean, Copilot has that data and is trained on it, so...
Yeah, but it's the same thing as everything that's copyrighted. And the shader toy code is copyrighted. So what is the answer here? I don't know. And that is what we need to find out. But when it takes something from Stack Overflow and transforms it a little bit here, does the Stack Overflow license apply? Because it passed through this model? I don't know. Yeah. It seems like
you remember the.
If I take
remember the Oracle and Google thing, right? With Java on Android.
If I take something on Stack Overflow and it goes through my mind and then I transform it somehow, this Stack Overflow license applies. So in my head, it would make sense that the license still applies. But you need to know where it's sourced from in order to fulfill the license. Because if it presents it to you like original content, you think, oh, well, this is great. Just paste it in. I don't know.
Entirely differently, Aggie, that happens way too often, but so does the opposite, where this will be an easy fix 4 days later. Right?
A bug I thought would take me days. half of those there.
Yeah, it's like, oh crap, this is gonna be terrible, and then you have a eureka moment, and you just mash it out, and everything works. And then sometimes you're like, oh, this is gonna be easy. I'm gonna move this box 4 pixels to the right, and all of a sudden your entire UI just falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
So that also happens.
Yeah.
So
be thankful for the easy wins.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also a question I have sometimes. Let's say you estimate a task at work. It's going to take 2 weeks. But then it takes 2 days. What do you do?
I jump on the next task.
Yeah. But what do you do? What will happen if you estimate it to 2 weeks, but it takes 4 weeks instead, right?
I'd inform my stakeholders.
Then you get a lot of trash. You promised 2 weeks.
Yep. They remember the bads and forget the goods.
We try to remind them that these are estimations, and if there are unforeseen circumstances that we can't quite control or haven't been able to identify, then it may extend the time. And we can only be honest with them. And if the client is someone that's like, well, you suck at your job, then it's like, well, I don't want you to be my client. If you aren't reasonable, understandable, I'll just go ahead and, I'll do everything that I said that I'm going to do. But I'm going away.
Yeah. But then sometimes you're in a position where, like, this client that sucks is the only client, and we can't find a new one.
I try to make my clients realize that I'm doing the best that I can. Always.
Yeah.
And things go faster than you expected, and things go slower than you expected. But I feel that in the end, it kind of cancels out.
Yeah, it does.
It's in the averages.
Yeah. And you also have to remember that, and I'm very upfront with this with my clients, that if you want this at a fixed price, right, I'm going to give you a price now, and that's what you're going to pay. First of all, we need a really good spec, plus it's going to cost them 20% more than I think it would, or than what I think it should take if I did it, hour by hour, because I need that security, that wiggle room in case things happens.
100%.
I'm very open with that. And so far, my customers have understood it as well. Had understanding. What were you saying, Snobbit?
Nothing serious. How things are working out for you now, Tindal, by the way? You were sick for a while? Are you back in business?
Yeah, I'm still coughing a tiny bit, but I'm getting there. I started streaming again.
Yeah, it's
went well. I've got most of my energy back, not quite all of it. Now I've started making some plans, hoping things will pan out. And I will share them as they progress.
I have a question for One Lion. Sorry, Tindal.
Yeah.
So One Lion, you are a source generator expert, right?
I mean,
he's the expert.
Just because you see it right
pressure.
here.
Yeah. So have you done incremental source generators?
I sure have.
Yeah. How does that work? Maybe it's a too broad question. I don't know.
I don't know. I put the interface, I hit Control Dot, hit enter, and it gave me the methods to fill in. I did some Googling for which part of the regular source generator that I'm used to doing goes where. And yeah.
But normal source generators, right? Isn't it? I'm not really know what I'm talking about, but generally, don't you sort of generate text? Or maybe it works differently.
Yeah, sorry, no, you're right. DC Aggie is hilarious. That was funny.
Yeah.
I prefer to be called developer.
I prefer developer.
I'm not just a source generator, but yes. So I don't like this. I was thinking of a way to create all of my classes like I did here, but have those be C# files in a separate project library, because the way that I have it here, I want this to be extensible. I want the user or the consumer of this library to be able to create new mapping rules in their code. But if all of the mapping rules are source generated in this namespace in this package, when you use it as a NuGet reference, this package is stuck how it is. You can't add any new mapping rules, for example. So if I had it as a separate not CS proj, what are they called? Proj items? The type of project where it's just a whole bunch of files in it, and then you reference that file, and those files are treated as if they're part of the project you're referencing them in. So pretty much this entire library would be that. Then the source generator would you would use the NuGet package for the source generator in your project where you're using this. It'll create this library in your project using those shared files, and then any new mappings that you add will also be in your project.
Yeah. But essentially a source generator, sorry, I'm coming back to stupid questions, right? Isn't that you iterate over this Roslyn model of C#, I guess, and then you generate some C# code, right? Like that. That looks like what I expect to see.
Yep. Pretty much.
In the code, right?
Yep.
And then in order to support incremental, do you then generate snippets? Then it replaces snippets of that code, like it's sort of inside what you generate, or that's kind of what I'm confused with the incremental stuff.
I'm still approaching it.
If that's the question, you can't modify code, you can add code. So if you want to affect a class, that class has to be marked as partial. Then you can generate the same class name in a different file and add things to it. We can never modify a property that's already been defined, for example.
With incremental source generator.
I mean, you could, but yeah.
Can you really? I don't think so. I mean, if
like you said, if it was marked as partial, then yes.
Oh yeah. If the property is marked as partial, absolutely, yeah.
But here's a question for you. You probably already thought about it. So, but I'm just asking. I noticed that you use the string interpolation here and the at thing, right? Have you tried using the new triple strings?
I have. At the time that I was writing this, I didn't have Lang version 13 on here.
Yeah.
But now that I do, I think I tried it and then it still wasn't working correctly.
Because what I found to be really good when we in our old GraphQL code is that you can type you can do double or triple of these dollar signs, right? In front. No, the dollar signs is what I was thinking about.
Yeah. Yep.
Because then I see you do this. Or maybe it's, I don't know exactly how this works. So maybe
I mean, it's the same thing, but yeah.
But what I like about this double dollar is then you these curly brackets, then you can have a single curly bracket for when you want to have a single, but then you have to do double when you want to invoke it. So
exactly.
So that's a really good improvement. Here you type 4. I'm a little bit uncertain why.
Yeah, so the 4 is for a bunch of reasons. So not only is this the string template essentially that I'm using for it, but it's also going to be in a string dot format after it runs.
I see.
So then those curly braces also need to be escaped in the string format. So this ends up putting 2 curly braces when you render this, and then string.format will be 1 curly brace.
I mean, it works, right? But it's like, yes, I get it now.
Because like here, this is going to be something that gets replaced in string.format.
Yeah. So I came across an issue with source generators when I was poking around with the on property changed. That you can't run a source generator on code that's generated by a source generator.
Except you can. They're coming out with that.
Yeah, you will be able to.
You will be.
At the moment, you can't. Yeah. And apparently, if you put code inside of a .racer file in Blazor, that gets source genned into your backend file.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Did you hear when they talk about how Racer works?
It's basically a source generator that moves everything over into a different file, right?
Yeah. So the way he described it is first they do processes using HTML parser, and then they extract the C# code, and then in that C# code they reformat and do things refactoring, and copy paste that back into Racer format in order to do certain operations. So it seemed extremely complicated to me, because they were sort of formatting HTML and then extracting C# and then generate the C# code and then formatting that C# code using a tool, and then using some tags in the code, copy back the formatted code into the Racer. And I was like, now I get it why Racer does funny things with my code, because this sounds complicated. Because in my naivety, what I thought I had done was to define an abstract syntax tree for the entirety of Racer, but it seemed more to be like a combination of HTML processing, extracting C# as strings, and then treat it differently, and then pasting that back into HTML document where they think it would fit, and then compensate for tabs that the other thing added. It was like, I'm glad I'm not on that team.
Everything would have been so much easier if HTML would have been strict from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that we allowed HTML to be, it's good enough, has really put us in a hard situation right now.
I can sympathize with whoever decided that HTML just needed to be put out there, because when I was given these projects, it was like, I have this amount of time to get all of these converted. So I got them converted. They had a bunch of mess in them, but I needed to put them out. And so now they are in the state that they are. Well, actually, they're improved a little bit.
And
you know what I mean?
I mean, the idea with HTML was that it wasn't just going to be used by computer scientists. It was just like COBOL, Snobel. The point was to allow everyone to create pages. And that meant that they couldn't make it strict, because then no one would have been able to create pages, because people make mistakes. But now we are dealing with the aftermath of that. I understand the decision of doing it that way.
But same thing, another thing, completely different thing here, right? Another aftermath we're dealing with is in the 1970s, Intel was designing the 8087 FPU. And then they brought in a guy called Kahan, which is a very arrogant guy, but also a brilliant guy in numerical analysis. And his suggestion was, these floating point numbers you're doing, they are based around base 2. It's better to base it on base 10. And then they said, well, that's probably a good idea, but it's too late in our design process. Maybe take it in the next version. Now, 50 years later, we're still sitting with with binary floating point numbers, and are suffering because of it. And if
Get
someone
it
asks
done
me
in the
why,
next release.
yeah. And if someone asks me why is why is this a problem? I think one line, Tina, you know this, but the classic 0.2 plus 0.1 does not equal 0.3 is because it's fundamentally a binary number under the hood. But if it was a decimal number, or called decimal in the C#, 0.2 plus 0.1 would be exactly equal to 0.3. And he suggested it in 1973, and it's never going to get fixed.
And why didn't they fix it with x64? That would have been the perfect time, right?
Didn't they just go for compatibility with? I don't know. No, I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, they went for compatibility,
where I would sort of imagine a reason and then get convinced it was that thing. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, they went for compatibility with x86, but that didn't. They added stuff to x64, and you had to compile things for x64 to run it on x64.
Yeah.
So they could have said, "Oh, so this is built for that. Let's deal with this as base 10." And if for x86, it's base 2. Problem solved. Except they didn't.
Yeah.
And the problem wasn't solved.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think Khan, he saw further than most into the future. And but yep, here we are. And also the guy that invented null at some point.
Was that him as well?
No, nothing. Obviously. Null reference exceptions.
He just kind of left it off. He's like, he should not
He did it all, you know.
I like null.
I mean, you have to have a value to sort of mean kind of no value, right? But
yeah,
but I would actually prefer that it existed such an actual value, so you could, because I don't like null reference exceptions.
Yeah, no one does.
Yeah,
but
so
that's because you can't use a value that doesn't exist, so it'll give you an error instead.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be able to call something on something that doesn't exist. So,
and that's why you have nullability warnings.
Yes, but not everybody understands them or turns them on, or they add the exclamation marks everywhere.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
everywhere. You out there? Stop that!
Yeah,
I'm looking at you.
Yeah. So what I think is Microsoft, they shouldn't have put exclamation mark. What they should have said instead of exclamation mark is, "I promise you, this is never null.
You have to type
know
it all
I'm doing. I'm really, really sure. Just compile, damn it." That's what they should have called instead of exclamation mark. So people think a little bit before, because what happened when we added nullability when we added nullability checking in the source code. In the beginning, the only thing that happened was that people added exclamation marks everywhere to make the compiler pass.
In general, I think that exclamation mark is an anti-pattern.
Yeah, but so my thing is that if we, so what I talked a bit about that, if this is what we do when we add nullability checking, it's better for us to turn it off. Because if the only thing that happens is that we add exclamation mark everywhere to make it compile, instead of thinking about what it means, it's better to just turn it off. I type exclamation mark occasionally, but then I also write a comment why I think it's a good idea at that point.
Yeah, that sounds like the right way of doing it. I try to stay away from exclamation marks as often as I can. Sometimes it would mean taking very large detours to be able to do it without an exclamation mark and without a warning, and then I can use it. But in general, as you said, I really try to think about, is there any other good way of doing this?
But really
if there isn't, then go for it. But
when people type is, they type null exclamation mark. So they type null value and an exclamation mark saying this is not null. And then my mind kind of breaks it. Yeah, you can do that.
You can.
Does anyone?
Yes. Yeah, and here's a use case for it. So let's say that you're doing a what are these called?
It's like
file? And you're injecting some service. Service provider. Set. Then the compiler will yell at you, or will give you a warning that says you're not setting this to anything. So the pattern that they tried to enforce during the first few weeks of putting this out is putting null bang. Compiler error gone.
Me don't like.
Yeah. So the better, real quick, the better option is to use the what is this called? Attribute that says allow null. Because this will always be provided if there is a service registered for this thing. Otherwise, the application will do an immediate runtime failure.
And you can say that it can be null or it can fail to be injected if it doesn't have anything registered. So technically, the warning is correct. But what happens if you add the required keyword to this? I'm not entirely sure.
You really
Yeah,
don't
but if you did that instead of allow null,
Can type require here?
it doesn't work on properties.
Yeah, properties works.
It does work on properties, but it doesn't work on this because the constructor itself isn't assigning it.
Ah. What happens if you just remove the get in the set though?
I have no idea.
But you can also see this pattern when people are doing, for example, DTO classes, and they have a string or something like that, and that's then they type null exclamation mark. And for me, it's like typing. For me, it's very weird because I think it's like saying this is a string. You give a string literal that you immediately cast to int, and that will always crash, obviously, because that cannot happen. But because this nullability check, I like it, but it's you have to think when you use it to get the benefit.
Yeah, and it taught me a lot of things. So like there are a whole bunch of really cool attributes that you can use, like member not null. Let's just find one of these.
Oh, yeah.
So you learn about these things, and now you are kind of programming in a way where you really are considering where are things getting null values, and you are running into a lot less null reference exceptions. I've run into very, very, very few now that I've turned nullability on.
Right.
And I am considering when I am using the exclamation point, have I really done something that guarantees that this thing is going to be not null before getting to this point?
Yes. Yep. So, but have you noticed that if you type, at least I think it's still the case, maybe we fixed it in C# 10, but if you take link, right, and you type where something, a string of, let's say nullable strings, and then you say keep where x is not equal null, right? I still think so everything after where x is not equal null, right? Then you only have non-nullable values. But I believe when you do things with things there, it's not smart enough to realize that where removed that nullability thing there.
Still the case that it does not.
Yeah. It's advanced stuff, right? So I can understand why, but that is one of the things that's a little bit annoying.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's still. I definitely have an example of that.
But you also know about all these attributes saying not null if true. Probably seen out of those as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, those are things that I am using, and I love them because they really do make it a lot easier for me to visualize what this application is doing.
I'm not crazy about the is null and is not null syntax.
Yeah.
Except you
I
can't
understand
use
why
it
it exists and why it just feels too Visual Basic for me.
Well, my point is
okay.
Go on.
No, I was just trying to understand what he was talking about, but I get it. I like the is.
My issue with this is there are now two things to do the same thing. So
no, they don't do the
same thing.
Well, it's kind of the same thing though.
It's close, but it's not quite.
Yeah, but
one is just a equals 0 on the pointer check. The other one does a full unwrap of the inheritance chain and checks for a operator override.
Yeah, but in reality, it's not most of the time. So I for most of us, in most of the cases, when you type is not equal null, it is what is null is, right? So should we then use pattern matching everywhere? Is that the more benefit? Should we, instead of using double and double?
I do like using pattern matching.
Should we use and or? So it's for me now. C# has gotten so many things that does kind of the same thing to me. With pattern matching, you can type and or, like name,
like the actual words. Yeah,
words, right? So what should we use?
I don't have anything good in this object. Let's do resp obj. I'm sure I have like a record count. Okay, switch. And then you can have 0 and not sure 0 and not 0. But anyway, he's saying that you're using English words instead of the and or pipe.
So I know my point there is dumb. Just it feels wrong somehow. And there's no reason for it to
you have a
dumb.
preference. You're totally allowed to have your preference. I wasn't saying that it was that you were bad for not liking is null. Especially you're really bad for not liking is null, especially since you understand what is null is doing different than equals null. No, you're not being judged for that.
Thank you. Yeah, if only they could have used a different syntax. They could have used pipe equals or exclamation point equals or instead of English.
But I believe you can. I can't believe you can type it like this. I typed in chat this time. Is that better? Is that how you should type stuff?
Oh, yeah, that too. I can't remember who showed me that, but I like it.
I kind of like it.
Thanks so much
but
for the raid.
It's also when I see this, there is a benefit sometimes to that. There aren't too many ways of doing things. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's there.
Oh no. You don't have to drop it. I was just saying hi to the 2iPi. It's definitely something to talk about. I haven't switched to using that syntax, mostly because I don't know how it operates. I switched to using is null because I understood now that the object comparison versus the value reference comparison or overload checks kind of thing happen. So it made sense for me to do that. But for me to switch to x is greater than 10 and less than 20, the question is it still functioning the same as declaring or indicating which variable twice, so that I'm just writing less code and it's easier to read, in my opinion? Or is it actually performing a different function under the hood? And if so, is that function slower, less performant, etc.? So since I don't know that, I'm using what I know.
Yeah, and also start seeing people using very cool pattern matching things to avoid introducing variables. Like, so you can write everything as a long one line, and it does everything sort of, test if this is this, and then this is this, and then this is this, and then is it that? And for me, in function programming, there's something called point-free programming, where you try to sort of build these chains of functions. You change combining operators. And I'm just thinking, whenever I see that, it's just much easier to read if you introduced a variable and we called it something like this is a prime number and this is that, and then we do that. And instead of creating this huge change of things without variables. So I call point-free programming pointless programming. But when I see that kind of stuff as well, when people are building this huge change, it's an interesting mental exercise.
I am guilty of
I just think it's easy to introduce a variable and call it something, and then you understand what it is.
I am super guilty of this. I apologize for it. You're absolutely right. This is ugly. This is not easy to read. This is hard to parse as a developer coming in. I get it.
And another thing that often confuses me is when people mixing and or in expressions. Then for me, my brain is, what does this mean?
A tiny bit of it is okay, but if you start making really complex checks, then just split it up. I am very trusting of the compiler. I'm like, if I have two nested ifs versus one if with two conditions in it, I am fairly certain the compiler is going to make that into the same IL.
So it's like, how does the application translate what you write anyway?
Yeah. So why
Again-
not make it easy to understand instead of concise?
Yeah,
So for me, if
it's a good.
I mean, this is just my failing as a developer, right? But the only if expressions I really read confidently if it says X and Y and Z and if it's always and in between. But as soon as there is single or in there, I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? I get confused.
It's the parsing of it.
Parentheses.
Yeah. No, it's not just that. I get confused about the whole logic. What does that or mean, so to say? But when it says X, Y, and say Y and Y, then I know, okay, if all of these things here are true, then we go into this thing here.
Yeah. I have no problem with or. The problem is when you mix them.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you end up in these, okay, so what order do I need to treat these? But that's why you have parentheses.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's definitely a thing. The thing that I struggle with is what happens when I do have like this is my failing. What happens when I do have a large conditional that is like this and this and this and this, which I'm like, what do I do with that? Should I actually do variables ahead of time that say combine like variable first check, variable second check is the previous check or this check? Next check, and then do if final result.
Here is one idea. Create a method, function. Name it something smart. Call if I am bigger than the other guy and send in the parameters. And then you can put your complicated return boolean inside of that.
We can make local functions. How many are you using local functions?
I have not been using local functions.
Nor have I.
That's a good idea.
Because then you don't have to send in the variables.
I agree with you, but can I do a local function in a .razor file? I should be able to.
That's a good question.
Should be able to. It's just C#. So
yeah. When it's Razor, it doesn't feel like it's just C#. It feels like it's
True. I'm moving around a lot because I'm frozen. The 2 bottles of water that I had were really cold and it feels like it's freezing down here. And then I filled up my bladder too. But yeah, like this one here, what I would probably do, given Thindle's and Snobble's suggestion just now, is create a local function that does do the comparison that I'm trying to do here. The problem with that is then I would need to, because this is doing a null check on rule detail and I'm using, no, I'm not. Somewhere I'm doing a null check and I'm trying to use that property later. There is nothing that's going to say that that property of this other object is going to not be null. So then I have a whole bunch of green squigglies on my screen because now I'm not doing null checks according to the compiler. So that's why they're all in line. That's the majority of what these are. Null checks. Stop it, DCA.
So, yes, it won't pick that up then.
Yeah, so like if I move this into a function and I was using it down here and I was like, I want to do, let's do string.parse. Not string.parse, int.parse. Lab mapping rule detail. Then this is not allowed to be null in int.parse. So it requires a non-null string. However, if this was in a separate method, then it would not pick up that I already did a null check on rule detail.
I thought it would, but
Well, here,
I also trust you.
Well, we can look, provided I know how to type words. We'll call this private. Oh, I'm so cold. Private bool. Do the check, do the Duca check.
Yeah, Duca.
Oh gosh, what all are we gonna need for this? The lab mapping rule, lot reference is. Wait, are you also? Yeah, we have access to those. We have access to
Yeah,
all
they
these
should all
things.
be available.
And that is simply going to, for now, return that.
You have a parentheses too many, I think.
Okay, I believe you.
Nah, maybe not.
I just wanted to put it up here. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Doesn't look like it. It looks fine.
Nope. Looks fine.
Okay. So, interesting. We aren't getting the green squiggly.
Maybe we used to.
Also, I approve of you typing the and in the front.
Oh,
So,
up here at the beginning of each new line.
At the beginning of each new line, yes. I'm approving that. You don't need my approval, but I approve it anyway.
Awesome.
I
Let's
used
try
to have the
access
little, what's it called? Yeah, what would you call those? You know, the operators that link two conditions together. And an or.
Conditional
I don't know,
operations.
yes. But isn't that what it's doing? And an or here, down there?
Yeah, it is. I was just thinking about the word for it.
Logical
I
operators.
used to do those.
Logical
I used to do
operators,
those
great
at the end of the line.
Hmm.
Until I started moving things around and figured, oh, it's way easier to do things if it's at the beginning of a line. And
Yes.
then I had to retrain myself to do it that way.
Or Boolean
But-
logical operators. That works.
I'm finally there.
Awesome. So here's an instance where I am accessing a property off of an instance field, and I'm doing the null check right here.
Mm-hmm.
To say at int parse, what does that mean?
That was just turning this.
Yeah, that
string
pushes
into
it
an integer.
into, that makes it into a code statement.
So
Oh, the at. Right.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Which actually I
Since
don't
you're
need the at
already in
this
code, you can skip
context.
it.
Yeah.
It's a
So-
razor invoker thingy.
Okay.
If I was in a HTML element, like a div, for example, and I
Yeah.
wanted to use C# code here, so I wanted to output some taco equals some number, and it's based off of a variable,
Okay.
this is going to print text. This is all just going to be output directly to the page. If I put the at, then it's treating this as C#.
Yeah.
And so now
And
it's
then
going to give me the
injects it.
properties value.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, like angle bracket parentheses for ASP or JSP.
I see. Now you know
That's
it.
the razor. Here be code.
Yeah, Razer is super simple and not complicated at all.
Yeah, it's super simple when it works, and when it doesn't, you're gonna scream your. Yeah, you're gonna scream.
Yeah, it does get annoying
you don't
when
know
you're.
why.
I totally given up on writing C# code in the Razer code, in the Razer files. I just use what's called code behinds now.
Behind. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I tend to use code behind, but there are times where it's really, really helpful to have a code block. Like if you're making a base component and being able to type render fragment, this thing gives me back at here's my HTML or my Razor syntax.
I write some small snippets of code inside the Razer file. Okay, so it's not complete, but I write the bulk of the code inside.
Yes.
And the only reason I do that is because I am not a friend at all with the Razer editor.
Nah, it's a buggy, crashy mess.
But when I described how it worked, then I'm like, okay, I see now why it is. And I also see no way to fix it when they describe how it worked. Which is maybe good news and bad news.
Yeah, it's a great
All of
thing
the
that
above.
doesn't always work.
I think the
It'd
only
be
way
nice.
Sometimes it does.
to really make it work for them, but this is also probably very complicated, but that would be to define a language for everything and specify it in, the combination of C# and HTML together. This is the definition of that language, and then implement the language parser and language sort of things like that. So it's sort of, you can handle it in a sort of unified way, but that's also probably very hard to do. So yeah, either way, they sit in a pretty bad spot. Not a bad spot. It works, but to get it to work really good, I think it's...
Either way, they just suck.
No.
No.
I think Razer probably started at this kind of interesting hack, like someone... That's my feeling when they say, so they did this, and then they could ship stuff, and people say, oh, that's amazing, right? And then they added things on top of it to make it even more amazing. And now, a few years later, it is kind of a mess, in my thinking about it.
It's the argument about showing the client your prototype.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, ship that.
Yeah.
It's a prototype.
But I mean, many people likes it, so it's just me shouting at clouds in general.
Oh, no, you're okay. You're totally okay. You're allowed to do that.
You're allowed to.
It's a safe space. However, we are getting close to the end of the...
Seems so.
End of the stream. I can't think because I really got to pee, but we're still going to do stand-up. So...
Yep.
We'll start with Tyndall.
All right. This week, I screamed into the air, into nothing, because I had
you were
a
shouting at the
colleague.
clouds like a...
Yeah, I had a colleague who I brought in as a consultant because I don't have the time to do my customer project so that they're happy. And he submitted code that he'd never even tried to run, and it didn't work. Like, I think I can at least expect people to press F5 and see if anything happens. Other than that, good week. I'm planning on working a little bit on my website this weekend and trying to clear off some stuff on my backlog. And no blockers.
Did I say it anywhere close?
Is it my turn or not?
Yes. But
Yes.
did I say your name anywhere close?
Yes, it must be good. Morten.
Morten? That was really close. Cool.
So, yes, so I've been working on... we are going into Sweden, Tyndall, with our product.
Okay.
I'm working. Cool. I've been working on making sure the integration towards what is called Visma Financials works as it should, or good enough at least for this thing. And and it does, but and it will work for this first customer. But I'm trying to tell people, if we want to sell business to customer in Sweden, we have something called Root and Root, and we need to support that. Just saying. So what I'm expecting is that in 2 weeks they have sold in 5 new clients, because we shipped the first client, which didn't need it because they were business to business. But that's a future problem. At least what I've done so far, it seemed to work pretty good. And on Monday it's going to go live, and it's probably going to go well.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
Just
exciting.
for context, Root and Root is a write-off on taxes for things like cleaning services and stuff like that, and handyman. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's complicated.
Release in
Yes.
the US. Help. One day. Okay, so no blockers, you said?
Nah.
All right, my stand-up is short. I've been working on DevOps stuff, trying to log all the things that are remaining for the lab data import. It's fully working. It is in production. They're using it, uploading data. There's just some UI quirks to clean up and make prettier. So then coming up on starting next week, we will either be doing more cleanup in the lab import utility, or we will be moving back to one of the other applications that we were working on converting from WinForms, C# WinForms, to Blazor.
Ooh.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great time.
I
Other than
like.
that, no blockers.
WinForms for win. And
WinForms for the win.
Yeah, I mean, WebForms is WinForms for web devs, right?
Yeah.
I saw that this Aggie got a Spot Award this week. That's congrats. What is that though? I'm just curious what it means.
It's probably a oh, what did we used to call that in federal service?
Did it spot
Anyway.
the CEO of the gym? Right? Is it spotting? Checked so you
He
don't.
got a special recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah, special act award. Special act award.
That's nice.
Most
And
just
each of the
realized
two
that he's
iPod-
awesome.
Yeah, exactly that. Each of the two iPi is saying I'm working on an interactive Jackbox-like game. I love Jackbox. For my stream, specifically was working on audience integration with chat. Awesome. And hello, Winsing. Winsing.
Magnivi, you mentioned you have a library for export document to PDF for printing document, and this just tickled some PTSD. Bye bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye bye.
Thank you for today. Bye.
Thank you guys
Thanks
for
for
being
having
here.
me
You
on.
guys were amazing.
Yeah, we're okay.
Amazing. Trust me. Thank you all for being here. Magnivio, goodness, I can read, is saying, cool, do you have library for the export document? Yes, absolutely. Or wait, for the export document to the PDF or printing document. I'm not sure I fully understand what you are asking, but we do have applications that generate PDFs, and the way that I do it is I format it in such a way that when you hit print in your browser, it's formatted to fit the page that we're expecting to print to, and you just print to PDF. But the library that we're working on stream is the one for being able to import data from one form, from CSV or Excel, to C# objects for you to work with in your code. We have an open source repo for that. It's side project. Side project. I don't remember if there was a dash or not. I need to pick a raid target. But yeah, that is the end of our stream. I will be back again on Monday for the actual work development stream. Today, for those of you that are new here, we have Community Day every Friday, and I encourage you to come up with topics that are relevant to the stream, hopefully, to the stream's content, things to do with software development, things you're excited about in technology, things that you're working on. Maybe if you want to share some stuff, we've had more, dang it, I was gonna say it wrong. Snobbo was in here 2 Fridays ago, and he walked me through setting up cake build, and that was awesome. It was a fantastic time. We have conversations about just about anything, so come up with things. I just pop in and go with the flow, and I have a great time. Awesome. Glad you have a great time. Thank you for being on today's. Definitely check out Thindle. Shout out to Thindle. And it's going to take me long enough, but I'm going to do a shout out for Duke Soft too. We'll be able to get it in before I'm done waving and pick a raid target and all that. All right. I was saying something, but then I stopped saying something. What else? This is just more proof that it's AR. My hand. I wouldn't be able to wave my hand for this long. What else do we have? While I'm trying to find someone, I know that I have one more thing. All of my videos are posted on YouTube after the stream. Each of the 2 Wi-Fi is like I was gonna say. What else? Monday is a workday stream, so during my workday streams, I'm not as engaged with answering questions, but I still read off all the chat. So feel free to hop back in if you want to see .NET development in a real-world scenario. I am working with a client doing real-world work. I'm going to set up the raid. We're going to target Oazor. I think that's how he pronounces it. No, we're gonna target. Ozar is not online anymore. We're gonna target. What exactly are you doing? Learning Unity. But you're in Steam, so it kind of looks like you're about to play a game. We're gonna target Sorcery Story unless she's about done. She's a Godot developer working on this kawaii little game. One lion is on. I would do my regular workday again. I've been doing it for the past few Fridays. Thank you. Target acquired. Dispatching bees. But I don't know. I'm not feeling it today. I'm just gonna finish off my workday. Jiminy Christmas! I have to pee. Don't do that. Oh my goodness. About peed myself. Perfect timing, Big Gamey. Perfect timing. Check out Big Gamey stream. He streams Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays usually when he's doing well. Yeah. Dang it, Dukasoft, I was gonna shout you out. You used up the. Oh, she's about to get double rated. Awesome. Okay. Anyway, that's it. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend. See you whenever you're around again. Love to have you again whenever you're around. Okay, ciao.